LMS, come to smoke cannabis. Doctor say make a pop one of this. Make me fly like say I'm Aladdin. Come bring some kind melodies. Oh, moment myself, no two parts like these. So many things inside of my jeans. Flat down, DBT, DBT. Wake up, wake up. Bow, 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 bow. Wake up. Bow, bow, bow,
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for showing up this morning. We'd like to begin the event today. I'd like to first apologize for starting about 35 minutes late. Dr. Adedipe knows that it's not our custom to start our event later at Lcci, being one of our key persons in-house. I'd like to welcome all of us to the SME Annual Symposium of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry today, with the theme Thriving in Trying Times, Strategies for SME Success. No other organization should speak on this except the Lcci, who are hands-on leaders, and the group ably represented or chaired by Mrs. Angela Bankole, FCA. So we are here this morning to know what strategies, what are we supposed to know as for the success of SME in Nigeria. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of us to this event. We'd like to begin right away. It's our custom here at Lcci to begin all of our events with the rendition of our national anthem. I'd like to please urge us, let's be upstanding as we take the national anthem for official begin.
Drive and tongue may differ, in brother and good we stand. Nigerians all and proud to serve our sovereign motherland.
Thank you so much. Please do have your seat. I'd like to recognize the presence of our leaders here present this morning. So I'd like to begin from the #1 citizen of the chamber. We have with us Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, FCA, President and Chairman of Council, this morning ably represented by his deputy, Engineer Lcci Kupoli. Let's put hands together for Engineer Lcci Kupoli. We also have this morning the chairperson of the SME group at Lcci, our mommy and sister, Mrs. Angela Bankole, FCA. Let's put hands together for the chairperson. Thank you so much, sir. Our keynote speaker this morning, I'm still looking for a word to describe Dr. Biodun Adedipe. Since I've met this man, he's been a reservoir of information and knowledge in Nigeria. Please jam your hands together for our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, founder and chief consultant at B. Adedipe Associates Limited. Thank you, sir, for showing up. You will, by the time he comes up to give his keynote address, you will know why I lack word to describe his level of intellectual prowess. Once again, jam your hands together for Dr. Biodun. Also, we also have with us this morning, I believe she's in, Ihembe Nwan Ko. Am I correct? Mrs. Executive Director, Business Development, NBIC PLC. Is she with us yet? Okay, not yet. Thank you. We'll recognize her more when she is here. Okay, please permit me to go fast by having the welcome address by the President and Chairman of Council, as earlier said, ably represented by his deputy. Put your hands together for our leader and brother, Engineer Lcci Kupoli, for his welcome address. Let's clap for the President, please.
Thank you, Sunday. Yeah. It's good that the way you recognize Dr. Biodun Adedipe, who spent so many years at the four walls of the university to be a doctor, but who has spent so much year in the industry. You know, most doctors are there at the university, but it's a doctor that has been with us for over 35 years. is an authority when it comes to Nigerian economy. As he said, when you listen to him, you will know. And I know that many of us here have listened to him several times. But fortunately, every time is always a new time. Our chairperson, chairman, Mrs. Angela Bankole, that brought us here together. Thank you for bringing us together again to talk about the nucleus of Nigerian economy. We are discussing. Say you own 96% of the company in Nigeria. You have 84% of the worker in Nigeria. And you have 48% of the GDP. We, Dr. Adedipe, will tell you later that it's more than that. But don't ask me the figure because I don't know. It is a great honor to welcome you all to this year's annual symposium of SME, Sectoral Group of Lcci. I salute our entrepreneurs, small business owners, mentors, and partners whose resilience and innovation continue to power the heart of our economy. Thank you for joining us and for your unyielding commitment to enterprise and national development. Our theme this year, striving in tough time, strategic for SME success, could not be more fitting. To meet a time marked by high inflation, fluctuating exchange rate, global supply chain disruption, and increasingly competitive market environment. These challenges test the strengths of every business, but they also call for creativity, adaptability, and courage. But they also call for accounting for majority of the job and driving innovation in Nigeria. The World Bank notes that SME contribute up to 90% of employment in many economies and the center to inclusive growth. Therefore, the resilience of SME is a reflection of national resilience. In an unpredictable times, adaptability and new currency is the most successful SME in those that read the environment, anticipate change, and pivot quickly. Every enterprise must now ask, how can we better serve our customer in new reality? Whether in diversifying the product, shifting to online channel, or revising the optimum model. Agility to unlock opportunity. Though the SME group should discuss digital readiness, business agility, and workshop to help members, stressing their responsiveness and build adaptable capacity. Tough time demand discipline, financial management. SME must review their cost structure, optimize resources, and diversify income streams. Equally, vital is the access to available currency, finance, whether through grant, credit scheme, cooperative, and new funding model. The Chamber has constantly collaborating with the financial institution, government partner in establishing SME-friendly financing option, and provide training in strategic management across the board. Digitalization is no longer an option. It is essential for competitiveness. SME that adopt digital tools for marketing, accounting, logistics, and customer relation outperform those who do not. Technology improve productivities, expand market reach, increase transparency. To support this transition, the Chamber will continue to support SME through our innovative hub for training and digital workloads. I hope most of us know the new hub that we innovative hub that we have at Ikeja. How many of us that have been there? I think we need to get there. It is for us, primarily for the Chamber and primarily for SME. Because that is where we can latch on to the new technology and increase our yield in terms of income. In a crowded marketplace, sameness is a disadvantage. Successful SME identify a clear niche, define their unique value proposition, and tell their brand story with authenticity. Ask yourself, what do I do better than everyone else? Differentiating build loyalty, pricing power, whether it is superior quality, customer experience, or innovation, find your edge and nurture it. The Chamber will support this effort through mentorship from successful entrepreneur and link a program to connect SME to corporate value chain. No business thrives alone. Collaboration multiplies opportunity. SME that connect through association, cluster, and partnership are better positioned to access information, share costs, influence policy, and scale up. Chamber remains your strongest platform for meaningful collaboration. Through our SME sectoral group, we will deepen engagement, facilitate joint venture, amplify your voice in policy advocacy. Together, we can influence reform and make it easier to do business and create more supportive environment for SME to flourish. Let us remember that tough times do not last, but very tough enterprise do. Every challenge holds within the opportunity for reinnovation, reinvention. Nigerian economic history is marked by numerous examples of entrepreneurs who have turned adversity into advantage. You, our SME, are the hero of that story. The Chamber stands ready to support you with training, advocacy, and partnership to make measurable difference. As we look ahead, let us choose optimism over fear, innovation over initiation, collaboration over isolation. Let us commit to the building resilience enterprise that can stand firm and go strong in any season. We can transform today uncertainty to tomorrow prosperity. Thank you all for your time, for your enterprise, for your faith in the power of Nigerian ingenuity. May your business thrive. May your idea flourish. And may the nation prosper. That is the message from Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, and definitely under my voice and my face. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy President. Thank you, sir. Usually you end every of your speech when you represent the president with the fact that The voice is yours of Engineer Kupoluyi, and the test is of the Gabriel Idahosa FCA. I will also jokingly add that pretty soon it will be both the test and the voice, God willing. Thank you, sir. I would not like to announce the date, but I just know that it will be both the test and the voice pretty soon. Dr. Biodun understands where I'm going, so that's why he's the first person to clap. Please, let's put our hands together for the Deputy President. Thank you, sir. So, having heard from our Deputy President who represented the President, we'd like to have a remark from the chairperson of the SME group, our sister and mother, Mrs. Angela Bankole FCA. Let's put our hands together for her. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to acknowledge the presence of the President and Chairman of Council of Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, ably represented by the Deputy President, Engineer Lcci. We acknowledge the presence of the council, members of council here present, and the past presidents of our SME group, chairman of SME group present, Mrs. Onofowoko Obadino, and Daniel Okeze. We appreciate you are here. And we acknowledge it. Oh, she's not here, but I have to acknowledge the presence of our DG, Dr. Chinyere Alomana, FCA. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this symposium organized by SME's Group Sector of Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Permit me to recognize and appreciate our keynote speaker, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, FCA. Our guest speaker, she's not yet around, but she'll be here, Mrs. Ngova Ihembe Wanwo, and our panelists, especially our sponsors, NASDA PLC. Where are they? Are they in the hall? NASDA. Okay, thank you for being here. I acknowledge, we appreciate you. Over the last few years, both the global and local business environment have tested the strength, creativity, and resilience of enterprises across all sectors. The world has changed, supply chains disrupted, costs rising, consumer behavior shifting, and market evolving faster than ever before. In Nigeria, the challenges have been further compounded by policy and economic transitions. We have seen fiscal and taxation system becoming increasingly complex with multiple layers of levies and unstable regulation that makes long-term planning difficult. We have witnessed monetary and credit policy adjustments, which have resulted in higher interest rates, which have escalated borrowing costs and made business operation more expensive for SME. Most notably, the removal of fuel subsidy, which, though necessary for national restructuring, have increased the cost of doing business and reduced operating margins for many enterprises. But as entrepreneurs, we know that adversity is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. History reminds us that some of the world's most successful enterprises were born or reshaped during the toughest economic times. When circumstances are uncertain, through innovators rise. When resources are scarce, creativity flourish. And when challenges seem overwhelming, real leadership emerges. Our ability to adapt, to innovate, and to stay resilient is what separates surviving businesses from thriving ones. The true strength of an enterprise is not measured by how well it performs in good in good times, but how courageously it endures and evolves in difficult seasons. That is why this theme, thriving in tough times, is so timely. It speaks directly to our current reality, but more importantly, it calls us to action. It challenges us to rethink our business models, to explore digital transformation, to strengthen our value chain, and to build collaboration that drive shared growth. It reminds us that no economy can truly prosper without a vibrant SME sector, because SME not just businesses, they are the heartbeat of innovation, employment, and community development. Ladies and gentlemen, we reflect on this theme. As we reflect on this theme, let us remember that every challenge presents an opportunity. Every opportunity to grow, an opportunity to grow stronger, to think smarter, and to serve our customers better. We must embrace technology, improve our managerial capacity, and cultivate financial discipline. We must lead with integrity, build networks that empowers us to stay focused on long-term value rather than short-term gain. Today's symposium provides the perfect platform for this conversation. We are privileged to have an exceptional lineup of speakers and panelists, seasoned professionals, visionary leaders, policymakers, and thought leaders who have walked the path of enterprise building. They bring with them a wealth of experience and deep insight into the reality of doing business in Nigeria and across Africa. I have no doubt that they will do absolute justice to our theme. They will dissect the issues, share practical strategies, and provide actionable ideas that can transform our enterprise and inspire us to reach higher. I encourage everyone here to listen attentively, engage actively, ask questions, and connect with others, because the solution we seek may come from the person sitting right beside you. Let this gathering be more than just another symposium. Let it be a turning point, a moment where new ideas are born, partnerships are formed, and resilience is renewed. Let us leave here not only informed, but inspired, not only motivated, but determined to act. Remember, tough times do not last, but tough, visionary, and resilient entrepreneurs do. The future belongs to those who dare to innovate, who adapt quickly, and who never lose faith in power of enterprise to create change. Together we build a stronger SME ecosystem, one that drives inclusive growth, creates jobs, empowers community, and sustains our nation's prosperity. Thank you all for being here today. I wish you insightful discussion, productive network, and renewed inspiration to thrive, no matter the times. I will leave you with these truths. Tough times build tough minds, and tough minds build strong businesses. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sail. John Maxwell. We ask ourselves, where do we belong? Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Please, once again, let's put hands together for the chairperson of the SME Grow. Thank you so much, ma'am. Having charged us, now we've heard from the president and the chairperson of the group. I can assure you the ball can now be set to begin to roll. Earlier, I announced that one of our guest speakers today is Dr. Biodun Adedipe, founder and chief consultant at Adedipe Associate Limited. I have I call it a paraphrase, a very short thing about his profile. I want to confess that what I'm going to read in any way does not truly represent fully what Dr. Biodun Adedipe possesses. Please permit me to read just like 2 or 3 paragraphs, very short one, to say that Dr. Adedipe is the founder and chief consultant of Dr. Adedipe Associate Limited, usually called BA Consult, with over 44 years of work and professional experience in the university teaching, investment banking, project finance, management and financial consulting, as well as leadership in business and non-for-profit organization. Biodun has an illustrious, very heavy one career that took him through the University of Lagos, the University of First, Enterprise Consulting Group, the World Bank, which is the African region, International Merchant Bank, and First City Monument Bank Limited. He received his doctorate degree in industrial economics, specializing in corporate finance from the University of Lagos, University of First in 1989, and BSc in economics, first class, from the University of Ife. I don't know how we call that, but University of Lagos. Now, Obafemi Awolowo University, OAU, in 1980, and bagged several awards in the process. He is a member of several respected professional bodies and membership of organizations, including Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, fellow and council member, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, fellow, the Nigeria Economic Society, life member, American Economic Association, and of course, your chamber, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a council member. Biodun founded BA Consult in February 1988, and he was responsible for charting and managing the firm's strategy and activities since operation commenced in March 1994. He retired into advisory role in the firm with effect from June 2024. Put your hands together for Biodun as he sits on the board of a copy of profit-seeking and non-for-profit organization in diverse capacity as chairman, non-executive director, and independent director. He is one of our speakers today, guest speaker, I must say. Jam your hands together for Biodun as he gives us one of his best today. Dr. Biodun, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And oh, please, sir, have your seat, sir. Thank you so very much. Let me start with the protocols and acknowledge and appreciate our President and Chairman of Council, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa, and our dear Vice President, may I say incoming PCC, as we normally Vice President and Chairman of Council, our own engineer, Lcci. Thank you so very much for not only being here to provide leadership and encouragement to us to have this conversation today, but of course, you gave us the President's address as well. And the Chairman of the SME Group, our own Mrs. Angela Bankole, we appreciate also and thank you for that beautiful speech you made. In fact, listening to yourself and of course, Engineer Kupoli, I was like, what more is there to say? Okay, except that I probably will bring in the economic outlook perspective so that we can put them all together, forget into what should we do. And I'll put it in this context, that as a business consultant, when in the early days, when we got into the business, the joke on consultants was that, why pay a consultant money when all the consultant will do is come to you, borrow your wristwatch to tell you what the time is, no value added. But with that said, in our own times, it is about, even as a consultant, if I have to borrow your wristwatch, it won't be to tell you what the time is, but to tell you what you should be doing at this time of the day, which is the real value that we're adding. And that's the beauty of today's conversation. When you look at the theme, that is thriving in tough times, strategies for SME success. And I want to say a very big thank you for having me stand there this morning, and also appreciate the audience here. I'm sure we are going to have an interesting time. Now, in context, in making any speech, I like putting things in context. So I put there a slide, and that is my slide number 5. Slide number 5, okay. I don't know whether it's, okay, this guy is responding to me now, thank you. Okay, now if you look at developing countries all around the world, we have identified 5 major problems, I won't call them challenges, that are common to them. And in fact, you find that over time, the ones that have escaped the description of a less developed country have succeeded in resolving one or more of these problems. The first one is food deficit, which of course is identified generally with poverty all around the world. And we see the key role of SMEs in dealing with some of these challenges. The second is energy deficit. And I'll give you a simple indication here. Now, the Nigerian economy as of today, in terms of demand for electricity, we're estimated at around 203,000 megawatts, 203 megawatts. And so the question is, how is that gap bridged? Through the national grid, we deliver about 5,000 megawatts. So the difference between 5,000 and 203, how is that happening? So then you sit back and now tell yourself that, oh, it means that that deficit is actually being filled by you and I, in the sense that at work, your business does that. At home, you do it yourself. And so that deficit is filled somehow. But the filling of the deficit is coming with two deficiencies. Number one, the cost is a lot more expensive to generate power by yourself and for yourself than getting it through the national grid. Secondly, it is lower quality, all right? So in which case there is an interest, therefore, in generating power to the national grid and delivering to all the electricity consumers. That, again, play it against rural-urban migration. Now, when it comes to electricity, we consume a lot more the more people move into urban areas, all right? Now, if you look at Nigeria, we also fall among the top 10 around the world in terms of the rate of urbanization. I will show you a few statistics on that later when I want to do the outlook. So again, there's manufacturing deficit, and of course, infrastructure deficit, and then housing deficit is common among developing countries. Now, all of this reflects in varying degrees in Nigeria because we are not producing enough of any of this. Yes, we are producing, but not enough. That's why we talk of deficit. So the important question to address then is, how do we produce more? And this is where SMEs come strongly into the equation by my own reckoning, all right? Now, let's look at SMEs and consider what they represent. And of course, in the earlier two speeches, these points were made very clearly. But I have them summarized in just this slide. And then we go on now to talk about the economy thereafter. It is a given fact that SMEs are the powerhouse of sustainable development. Not just development, but sustainable development. Because they offer large numbers of jobs, especially at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, secondly, they account, and these are my own words, carefully chosen, they account for disproportionately large number of registered enterprises, as well as the total value of goods and services produced within a defined geography. Number three, there are critical linkages in the production value chains. And of course, what this also means is that they innovate and they foster competitiveness, which means if Nigeria, let's take our country to make that point. If Nigeria is going to be internationally competitive, then it must have empowered SMEs. And we see why in my conclusion later, I brought government and its agencies into consideration in talking about that. Now in Nigeria, we have disparate data on how SME are. But what I've done here is stay with the latest we got from National Bureau of Statistics and SMIDA. And that is 39.65 million MSMEs provide 76.5% of the total jobs in Nigeria. And that's quite huge. Now, not only that, they account for about 49.78% of our national GDP. And that's almost 50% of our GDP. So, and that gives you also an idea of how much value SMEs are creating in Nigeria. Now, not only that, they also account for about 7.6% of exports. That is, as at the time this was done, 2021. So now, if we come closer to today, especially what has happened this year. It is a different thing entirely. Now, if you look at OECD, that's the European countries, their SMEs are 99% of registered businesses. And of course, they are the main source of employment, and they account for 50 to 60% of value added. And that's okay. Wait a minute. What does the World Bank say about SMEs? That's how important and relevant are they? Said SMEs in developing countries, and Nigeria is one of the, well, let me say, there are 4 emerging and developing countries by IMF classification. And that is number 1, from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, only 1. And then from Africa, Nigeria, and South Africa. And then, of course, if you put this together, it says in developing countries, SMEs are central to economic diversification. You will recall that also this has been a major challenge for us in Nigeria. And I remember some 10 years ago, yes, 10 years ago, 2015, I was invited to speak to our senators and House of Rep members on the economy. And I gave to them a pie chart to demonstrate the fact that the Nigerian economy is diversified. But what is not diversified is our foreign earnings. And that is where the trouble is. Okay? And this, of course, was proven by a report released last week by IMF. I shared that convention with our vice president before we came in for this event. Now, in that report, what IMF did was to now adopt 2019 as the base year for the calibrating the Nigerian economy. And then they worked back the position of the Nigerian economy vis-a-vis the rest of the world from the 1990s and brought out some interesting facts. Now, in 2005, when Goldman Sachs issued a report that said, when we began with the new building blocks for the global economy, and we came out with this econometric evaluation of the global economy, in year 2000, we identified 4 countries, the original BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, okay, with small letter S at the time. Now, between 2000, when the report came out, and 2004, the stock markets of these 4 countries grew by between 423% and 640%. And so many of those who benefited from that, international investors, went back to Goldman Sachs. Can you please look at that econometric model again? Build in what has happened in the last 4 years into it, and let's get an idea of which other countries we should look out for where we can create wealth from the stock market. And then Goldman Sachs came with what they call next level, in which case the G7, 7 richest countries in the world, as they were called then, the G7, and then the BRICS, 4 of them, added, made the first 11. So among the next 11, Nigeria popped up because we had started reforms in 2004. So the then governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, that is Professor Charles Soludo, he now said, wait a minute, can we envision something here? And that is restructure and recalibrate the financial system in such a way that it will help this economy to grow and become number 20 in year 2020. So we began what was called the financial sector strategy for year 2020, which was later adopted by President Obasanjo then as our president as Nigerian Vision 2020, NIV 2020. So that's the background to that. Now, what IMF released last week showed that that vision Nigeria had achieved it. We shouldn't be talking about being number 20 at all. Because Nigeria's economy was number 20 by GDP in year 1998. Then, also in year 2013, we are among the top 20 in the world. In year 2014, we are among the top 20. In year 2015, we are among the top 20. So when I saw those 4 years within that period, I said, that means thinking of being number 20 really is not an issue to discuss. But what I brought out of it, which is the relevance to this, was that in recalibrating the economy, a lot of business activities taking place within the SME ecosystem that were now brought into the calculation display the true nature, structure, and value being created in Nigeria. And by adding that, he put Nigeria where it actually belongs to. So in which case, through the activities of SMEs, there's a lot more happening in Nigeria that we had ignored, which is now officially and formally recognized by IMF. So, and because it came from IMF, people can no longer doubt that. Because some of us also have been saying that over the years. It's now something that they can relate with as well. So now what does that say to us? It just goes to underscore the fact of how important SMEs are to the Nigerian economy. In fact, the data we put out that they account for about 50% of our GDP is probably incorrect. They do a lot more than that. Now, the CFI, Corporate Finance Institute, said SMEs favor flexibility and innovation. I'm sure if you paid careful attention to the speech made earlier by Engineer Kukoli, on behalf of our president, okay, that came out clearly in flexibility and innovation. And of course, they create more competitive and healthier economy. And the latest paper I did a publication in a book to mark the 70th birthday anniversary and retirement of Professor Kase Garuba. She's at the University of Ibadan, the first female chief economic advisor to a president in Nigeria. So those of us who worked with her at the time, we decided to do a book to commemorate our retirement. So I contributed a chapter of that book. And that chapter was to show clearly how significant SMEs are, not only in terms of the economy, but creating an environment for entrepreneurship and therefore helping to intervene at the bottom of the pyramid, dealing with poverty, and also showing clearly that, in fact, if you look at data all around the world and compare with what is happening in Nigeria in particular, you find that SMEs are a lot more important than they had been hitherto treated to be. Of course, OECD said SMEs are engines of resilience and growth. And they are also more recently emerging as key drivers of green and digital transitions. Now, the world we operate in is no longer VUCA. Ladies and gentlemen, we operate in a binary environment. That means an environment that is brittle, that is anxious, that is non-linear, and incomprehensible. Brittle because there is nothing you can hold on to as a hard line that you can beat your chest and say, this will not change, it is settled. In the early years, some 30-something years ago, when I became involved in business strategy, we used to talk about, 3 scenarios in strategic planning. Best case, most likely, worst case. Now, when we come to the worst case, we say, look, worst case gives you a situation where some things are just set, they cannot change. But the world we live in now, nothing is set and cannot change. Yes, we still do scenario planning, no doubt, but the world we live in and operate in is more brittle. Of course, anxious means you have no idea what, let me put it this way. We know Trump 1.0, Abby, and we also know Trump 2.0. Trump 2.0 is more volatile than Trump 1.0, okay? And it's a fantastic illustration of anxiety in the world of business. Now, I read something put out by the London Economist last week, and that is looking at the trade wars, especially between China and the US, what you call Sino-American trade wars. And they said that anytime there's trade wars, both sides to the war suffer. But essentially, the one that suffers less is the one that anticipates it and prepares for it. And that after Trump 1.0, China went back to the drawing board, like correct army generals, their leaders, and said, what this Trump 1.0 has signaled is that we may see trade war between America and China intensify. So what do we need to do? So let's go back and strengthen the powerhouse, the SMEs, and of course, other key sectors of our economy, so that when this thing is escalated, we not only will be able to survive it, that is building resilience to the Chinese economy. So when Trump won the election again and came back, China didn't need to begin to scratch the head All they did was now to kick in all those things they had envisioned and also designed response for. So now, non-linear means, ladies and gentlemen, your business has survived many years, maybe decades as well. But there's something we say also in strategy, that the strategy you used to conquer and win a hill, HILL, is not the same strategy you need to retain it. Which means one was offensive, you won, but the one you need now is to defend. There are two different strategies. And that's the essence of non-linear here. In which case, what you use successfully in doing business some 10 years ago, 5 years ago, in fact, let me define it by the COVID year 2020. What we find around the world, which is also the same in Nigeria, is that the way the economy and markets behave pre-COVID is not the way they behave post-COVID. In which case, if you look at post-COVID, that is up until date, let me use the consumer to illustrate. We don't talk only about Internet of Things, IoT, any longer. We talk about IOB, Internet of Behavior. In which case, how do your consumers of your product and services, how do they behave today? Okay, it's something you need to map. We talk about that also later, talking about strategy to respond. Then incomprehensible. I mean, there are things happening around you. Just ask yourself, how do I deal with this? Because I can't figure out the rationale for this. There's no longer, in the days we were taught economics in the 70s, we used to talk about the rational man. Then rational man was to a large extent prevalent. But nowadays, the rational man is very rare to come across. So concepts, theories of economics are also changing. And I'll give a simple one, which relates to the discussion we're having today. Now, when we were in school being taught economics, the understanding was business cycles. That is between a boom, recession, a slump, and recovery. Is on the average between 4 to 6 years. Which means no economy can enjoy boom beyond 4 to 6 years at a stretch. Thereafter, recession will set in. But we saw an instance where, when I became now an economist in practice, where an economy was in boom for 8 good years. And so we said, can we then say that what we're taught still holds? So we take the dynamics of the market and environment you're operating. We make you also be sensitive to what is happening there. So now in our firm, we identified 10 major global disruptions that are still ongoing. Of course, the Ukraine war began in February 2022, and that redefined the way we look at ourselves across the rest of the world. The lesson we took from there is that you cannot ignore what is happening in any geography. Once it breaks out, you have to ask yourself, and this was what I did at the time. I called my colleagues to a meeting, and I said, the war taking place in Europe, do you know that it is affecting us here? And they were like, how? I said, okay, how much was the breakfast bread you ate before that was broke out? I said, well, it was this much. So how much is it now? They were, it's more expensive. I said, can you understand here that the bread on your breakfast table became more expensive because of the war taking place in Europe? I said, well, how? I said, okay. I looked at it. I discovered that Ukraine was systemic in the supply of grains to the entire global market, 24.1%. Okay, so put that on one side. That means anytime you hear of any war or something unusual happening around the world, don't just close your eyes to it. Say, it's too far from here. Now, I spoke somewhere, I think in 2022, I made reference to the heavy monsoon rains in East Asia that caused problems for Bangladesh. Because at some point, 2/3 of the entire country, Bangladesh, was covered by flood in August 2021. Okay? And not only that, it affected its external sector. Because Bangladesh depended on export of garments to the extent of 84%. That their export earnings, 84% is export of garments to Europe and the US. So when COVID came, there was disruption to export of garments. And then at the same time, unfortunately, not long after, the intense monsoon rains came. And so Bangladesh was struggling at all ends because that destroyed rice plantations. That was what I said about Bangladesh. Then August 2023, the Indian government announced a restriction to the export of non-basmati rice. And then the price of rice went up everywhere in the world, not just in Nigeria. So while we're complaining here, rice has become very expensive. A bag of rice is now over 100,000 naira, 50 kg bag. This government is useless. This one is that. The traders here. I said, look, why don't you check the economics of it? I discovered that India was also systemic in the supply of rice to the entire global market. Not even the Thailand rice, whose price is used as the benchmark in rice market globally. India accounted for 40.1% of the rice we eat in the world. And what their government did simply was that heavy monsoon rains destroys rice plantations. So wait a minute. We have already overtaken China. We have become the most populated country in the world. If we don't ensure these people have food to eat, there'll be chaos all over India. And so the rice that the common man eats is non-basmati. Basmati rice is for people like you and I who wear suit. So they said. And so they said, in order to prevent food insecurity and chaos, we place a restriction on the export of the brand of rice that most people eat in India, which is called non-basmati rice. So when they did that, the price of rice went up everywhere in the world. So we often look at the outcome. Many of the times we do our evaluation, we don't look at the root cause. So in which case, if you look at that, it means for any country to be significant and also grow inclusively, it must look the way of SMEs. And how do we deepen the footprint of SMEs? How do we strengthen the ecosystem? I will share a few things that some foreign governments did in this regard. So now, beyond that, of course, we talk about macroeconomic instability. This one is important to you, artificial intelligence, okay? And of course, that talks to the importance of SMEs in digital transitions. We call it now that for you, it must be digital transformation, all right? Which means going beyond just understanding AI, we're coming to understand also generative artificial intelligence, and they're coming to the newest level of it, which is agentic AI. So is there a possibility that I can embed in my work processes and business processes agentic AIs, all right? But not even just agentic AIs, we also consider that AI agents that handle some activities in our firm can also have AI supervisor. But then we say, okay, what will that do to jobs? Or people always think that AI will take people's jobs. I say, no, AI won't take people's jobs. AI will take the jobs of those who don't know how to use the tools. And the same applies to businesses. Businesses that leverage the use of AI will gain an advantage over those that do not use it. As of 2023, AI was just in conversation how it can be used in business. But ladies and gentlemen, by 2024, AI had become a tool that businesses use in sales, in marketing, in planning, in financial management. And I think there's one other area that they also, yes, in compliance, okay? So in which case, the question is, looking forward, which AI tools are available within the space? Which of them can your company adapt and also use in driving its business? As it is for companies, so it is for individuals. The companies and individuals that will thrive in another 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, will be those that have mastered the use of AI tools. Let's proceed. Okay, I've spoken of climate change, so I'll move from there. Let's come home to Nigerian economy. One of the things we also map in our firm is the reforms introduced so far in the last 2.5 years thereabout by the Tinubu administration. And most of the time, people talk about two of them. Unify the exchange rates, first subsidy removal. But there are a lot more, of course. Now we talk about tax reforms, because the acts are in place. for implementation for January 2026. But what we did in our firm is to map all of them and now take everyone and interpret what it means. Now, the reality of this is that whichever place you are within the Nigerian economy and business environment, these reforms impact you one way or the other. And let me give you an illustration. When COVID came in 2020, I called my colleagues. I said, in interpreting the impact of COVID on economies and businesses, this is what I see here. The COVID will affect economies, they affect industries and sectors, from there affect businesses. So how do you respond? I said, okay, look around the world. The first country where COVID emerged was China. How did their government respond? They locked down some regions where COVID-19 was endemic, so to say. Businesses in those regions were adversely affected. So the one that survived, what did they do? Okay, so let's bring it home now. Now, when you have a health crisis, businesses form into two groups. Those that are essential and those that are not essential. So I now asked my colleague, which ones are essential? He said, well, any business in the food value chain. I said, correct. But people must eat, whether they are locked down or not. I said, okay. Which other category? He said, well, any company in healthcare. I said, correct, because it's a health crisis. I said, now let's come back on to BA Consult. If those are essential businesses, that means other businesses are non-essential, as it were. So which one are we? Essential, non-essential? They said non-essential. I said, then we are in trouble. So we should now begin to think, how do we survive? I told them, okay, you know what we do? Let's get a little creative here. The finance people, please go into our audited accounts for the last 2 years, that the preceding years of 2018, 2019. Which entities gave us business? List out their names. Now, we've done our own evaluation in terms of how COVID will affect economies and businesses. Then we identified 3 areas of what business should be doing, like we are discussing today, in response to that. I said, number 1, in a crisis, you want to ensure survival. That's the first line, survival. So what should companies do to survive? Then I said, now, number 2 is what I will call stability. So having survived, how do you achieve stability? So what should companies do to become stable? Then number 3 is to restart growth. So what should they do to start growing again? So those are the 3 different pillars in which we identify strategic initiatives. I said, now we have done that. Send emails to all these companies that gave us business in 2018, 2019, that we offer them free webinar on how to survive and restart growth in response to COVID-19 crisis. The first response came from First Bank. The second one, Bank of Industry. And then all of them, one after the other, we want it. It's free now. We want it. So we did it for them for free. I told my colleagues, you know what? This is our own survival strategy. Because when you help them to understand this crisis well and what they should do to respond to it appropriately, when things now stabilize, they will remember you. And that was exactly how it played out. After we did it for First Bank, the MD of one of the subsidiaries of First Bank now called me and said, Doctor, what you did for the bank's leadership that involved all the MDs of subsidiaries, can you do it for my own subsidiaries management? Then now we pay you this money. I said, hey, can you guys see? That thing is bringing money now. And that was how the team played out. So the idea is this, and that was when I came up with this idea, that when you are looking at tough times, there are 2 things you can see. You can either see problems or see opportunities. What I tell entrepreneurs, therefore, is when your mind is trained to see opportunities, you will not surrender or submit to problems and challenges. In which case, every challenge you see, what you are scouting for among it is where are the opportunities. Now, we illustrate this simply. We live in urban areas. We complain about heavy traffic. But you know that heavy traffic is business for some other people. Let's even stay in Lagos, don't go too far. Where you are heavy traffic, some young boys run around your vehicles to sell. So for them, bad traffic is good business. But for you and I, bad traffic is bad business. You are counting man hours and you are wasting that traffic. And so one of the things I've also learned in responding to that, I will never complain about traffic, because I will have something always with me that will keep my mind busy. Either to read a book, read an article, flip through a magazine, whatever. That is the way the mind of an entrepreneur should work. Oh, your flight is delayed. Why complain about delayed flight? Get busy, get something to read. And you'll be amazed as an idea that you can grab from that little stuff you go through. So now, going beyond that, I call this my macroeconomic dashboard. I update this on a weekly basis. So if I had the opportunity of speaking somewhere last week on the Nigerian economy, and I showed you a dashboard, it would be a different thing you meet this morning. This was updated yesterday evening. Now, our economy grew by 4.23%, second quarter of this year. Very strong growth by any standard globally, okay? Now, you see how this connects to the outlook I have, which I'll come to shortly, all right? But that was faster than the growth we experienced in the first quarter of this year, 3.13%, and then the growth we experienced second quarter of 2024. So, okay, so what that speaks to is that we are operating in an economy that is growing. And what do I take for you as entrepreneurs? Don't waste your time arguing with economists like me. Whether these statistics, is it really true? I don't waste my time on that. I've been in this system in an era where we have Federal Office of Statistics with an office in Ikoyi there at Ribadu Road. And we're working on an international project. And they asked me to get data on steel imports into Nigeria. I went to FOS, as we call the Ribadu Road Ikoyi. I said I needed data on this. Of course, it was a World Bank federal government project. So I had authority for them to give me data. I said, okay, Oga, no problem. Data is available on this, but it's not processed. So you have to go to where we have the raw data to extract it. I said, okay, take me to the place. They took me to a particular room. They opened the door. Computer printout almost to the to the ceiling. And I said, what is this? But eventually I extracted the data anyway that showed clearly that there was a market for steel products in Nigeria. Because then it was an international conspiracy. I will say that here openly because this happened many years ago, 1988. There was an international conspiracy for Nigeria to scrap Ajaokuta. That was in 1988. So, but interestingly also, among us, I worked with a young man who was a commissioner in the state of Alaska, but a consultant to the Canadian firm that had the project. And then the firm I was working for them was the Nigerian counterpart. And this young man said, we all sat in Lagos, you know, federal government seat was still Lagos. And we all sat in Lagos. And we are discussing scrapping Ajaokuta. Why don't they pay a visit? So a number of them, I didn't go with them. They went to Ajaokuta and came back and said, whoever we advised Nigeria to scrap Ajaokuta, the guy did like this. He didn't say anything. He did like this. I said, okay, what it means by that gesture is that something must be wrong with the person's mind. But invariably, project finished, recommendation, scrap Ajaokuta. Then the company I was working for, we wrote an exception report to the federal government of Nigeria. And so Babangida's government then, the late Agomu was his vice. So he was the one that announced it at an international press conference that Nigeria will not scrap Ajaokuta. Rather, we finish it and take the full benefit of that project. You can fact check this. For 2 years, between 1988 and 1990, the World Bank did not approve any new credit for Nigeria. No new loan for Nigeria. 2 years. You can fact check it. All right? So quick means when you are looking at the economy, and this is the point I always make, you can treat it like a zero-sum game. Quick means what benefits one geography is to the disadvantage of another. And I make it simple in illustration. Let's assume there are only 2 countries in the world, Nigeria and then others as a single unit. And then there are 10 opportunities for economic diversification. Nigeria was able to expropriate 7 of them. Others were able to expropriate 3. And we now say, okay, bring your scorecards. Nigeria's scorecard will look like this. Nigeria took 7 out of 10. We lost 3 out of 10. We write it as +7 minus 3. Then the others will come with their scorecard also and say, we won 3 out of the opportunities, but we lost 7. So their scorecard will read like +3 minus 7. Let's put the 2 scorecards together. +7 minus 3 plus 3 minus 7 equals what? 0. So in which case, on an ongoing basis, the argument should be, how do we make our economy competitive internationally? And that comes back to SMEs. Now, as of Friday, the exchange value of the Naira officially was 1457.96. At the parallel market, it was 1500. Premium, 2.88%. Fantastic. Less than 5% maximum benchmark recommended by IMF. Of course, inflation rates dropped to 18.02, changing the outlook for the end of the year. NPR down to 27% from 27.5. Oil price as at 17th of October. That was the latest data available. This came from Central Bank of Nigeria. I prefer to rely on that because when you get data from CBN, CBN is the accountant. And I give you an illustration. Right in this hall, I was invited to speak here sometime in year 2012 at an event. So when I finished, the media came around and said, we want to interview you. This controversy between the finance minister and Central Bank governor. Central Bank governor said $20 billion is missing. The finance minister said, no money is missing. I said, okay. I'm not going to answer your question directly. You will answer it, but I'll give you a clue. You have a banker. You have an accountant. Your accountant says, no money is missing. Your banker says money is missing. I said, who of them will you believe? Who among the two? So the journalist answered the question they asked me. Say, because the banker keeps the money. All right? So that's why I rely mostly on CBN data. Now, our stock market this year has grown at a rate unprecedented. We haven't seen the kind of growth we have seen so far this year, about 50%. So far from January till date. Okay? So let me go to the concluding part because this man working here is a signal. So a lot of what I said in the macroeconomic dashboard is backed up with charts and data that demonstrate this. The external reserves is there, exchange rate is there, premium is there. That's talking about the trends. I like dealing with trends rather than spot data. It gives you a lot more insight than when you pick on, oh, the price of petrol Friday was this. No, don't stay with that. Look at the trend. And of course, now coming to all of what I've spoken to, they are also there on the charts. We all get copies of this. Inflation rate is trending downwards. And you can see now that the trend line, that black thick line, is sloping downwards. Of course, stock market is there. Purchasing managers index, which is business confidence, and of course, the lending rate. So this is the outlook I have. Now, in the outlook, the final part of this, then I will close with recommendations, all right, on what to do. Large, useful, and rapidly growing population, estimated at 237.53 million people as of July this year. We are the 6th largest, most populated country in the world, number 6. We've been steady in that position in the last 3 to 4 years. And of course, median age, that's the one that is fantastic about us, 18.1 years. Which means if you line us up, Nigerians, the person in the middle is just 18.1 years old. That's a very, very young population. Okay? I've talked about rapid urbanization earlier on. You can see the data there. And of course, deepening internet penetration. That speaks to something here. Not only is there deepening internet penetration, Nigeria is also ranked number 11 in the world in terms of netizens. Netizens are citizens with access to internet. Okay? We are ranked number 11. But the interesting thing is that most Nigerians that access internet do it on their digital devices, 84%. So what that speaks to you and I is, if my business is going to grow, then it should have digital footprint. It must have digital platforms. So, and of course, I make this joke about people that if I ask you, what's your name, sir? And I put your name on a search engine and nothing comes out, in the era we live in, it means you don't exist. That's the reality. If I put your name on a search engine, nothing comes out, you don't exist. And the same applies to businesses. I should be able to put your business name on a search engine and then something should come out. If nothing comes out on a digital platform, then you need to work on that in the area we are in. So let me move on from there. I put some, projections here for end of this year and then 2026. That will be useful in doing your, strategy in your entity. And of course, the assumptions behind them is also on the, extreme right column on that table. So let me speak just a few minutes now and conclude about what are the strategic implications, and then what should you do at this time. Okay? Here, I won't speak to this because these are things we already know. Challenges that our businesses face, which are deepened because of the chaotic environment that we operate in globally, that I mentioned earlier on, major global disruptions. What should you do to thrive in these tough times? Number one, you need to build supply chain resilience. You've heard that word from the two speeches made earlier by our president and the chairman of the SME group. Resilience means the capacity to survive disruptions and chaotic situations. And you can't, in Africa, the example that always comes to my mind is Toyota in South Africa. What they never envisaged, put their factory under closure for almost 2 years. Toyota in South Africa. Flood. They never envisaged it. They didn't know that the area where they decided to build the factory for Toyota in South Africa was flood prone. Or the flood happened and damaged most of their equipment. Took Toyota 2 years to fix it. But they now, again, took their lessons in terms of choosing factory site. Okay? Then automate. Automate simply means anything that a software, let me use software now in generic terms, can do in your business, let the software do it. So that human beings can do what human beings should do. So if you are not thinking that way, then the next 5 years raises a question mark on not only survival, but sustainability. All right? When you talk about businesses that have survived over 1,000 years, it's something you need to look at. How did they survive 1,000 years and they are still in business? There are a good number of them around the world. Companies that have survived 500 years, 400, 300, 200, 100. What have they done to achieve that? Then seek trade abroad. What does it mean? I said this during COVID, that I used the terminology. I said you need to dollarize your business. Dollarizing your business doesn't mean charging dollars locally here, no. The idea is to seek business opportunities abroad. That's the whole idea. So what to do here is just someone that can need the product or service outside of Nigeria, even if what they will pay you is CFA. Okay? It still gives you some value better than what you get from Naira. So as you are selling here in Nigeria, you're also looking for opportunities outside of Nigeria. And that's a lesson I also learned in my own business. And in 2 ways. There's a proposal we did for a client, a business plan. Send it to South Africa to raise money. And in South Africa, they said they had never seen a business plan written in this form. I said, hey, so that means if I begin to scout for business in South Africa that need business plans, I can easily outcompete those they have been selling to. And then a financial services company in the Gambia also invited us to compete with some companies. We won the competition and they told us, the reason you won this transaction is because we had relied on a consulting firm based in London, UK. But what you offered and the way you will do it is superior to the other. I say, eh? So that means, then I should intensify seeking opportunities abroad. They harness available data. That's the one I referred to earlier on as internet of behavior. That means you have had customers patronize you historically. Pick every one of them and try to map which time of the year they bought from you. What that will tell you is that you don't need to wait for that time to contact them. If traditionally a company buys from me in December, I won't wait for December. By September, I've started knocking on their doors. And I can tell you here that the number of transactions I've firm is during this December that we got them logged in as far back as late August, early September. Because we saw that those companies usually bought those services early December every year. So we did that, taking advantage of data. Then, as the president said in the opening remarks earlier on, build new and also strengthen existing relationships. Now, when we talk about relationships, it's not about only those in the same business with you. You can build a relationship with a company in an entirely different business. And I'll give an illustration. Many years ago, we were doing some work for Cornerstone Insurance, and they were having challenges with processing invoices. And I said, I know how mobile producing processes invoices. So let me take that idea and bring to you, we call it benchmarking. Benchmarking means you look at who is best in which area that needs improvement in your own company. Then you buy or borrow the idea from that company that is not in the same business with you and bring it in. So that way you strengthen the core, number one, and then strengthen different processes within your organization. So that will make you more effective and, of course, more productive. Then, of course, develop and strengthen capacity to track and respond quickly to environmental dynamics. That's the one I call agility. Okay? It's part of what we are discussing today. What is happening around in Nigeria? What is going on? Okay? So you need to be abreast of what is happening in the space where you do business. Because the more information you have, the greater advantage you have over those who don't have it. It is not also enough to have it, but also interpret it appropriately. We have the same data, but some people interpret it differently. Just like the old saying that two of us are looking at a cup of water, and somebody say that cup is half empty. Another person say, no, that cup is half filled. Again, it's a matter of perspective that comes from interpretation. Lastly there, we must also actively advocate for government interventions. And that's what I put there. I found from researching this, South Korea paid attention to SMEs. And one of the things they've done in the last 5 years, all these things happened in the last 5 years that I put there under that bullet point. Loan guarantees for SMEs. South Korean government did that. Secondly, logistics subsidies, they did that. And then export grants. Yeah, we have export grants in Nigeria. Then for the EU, they introduced what they call SME Trade Defense Help Desk, which means SMEs have access to government where they can seek for help in terms of the challenges they face, whether doing business within or doing business cross-border. And then the Asian governments, okay, that's Asian government, they have this, union, they call ASEAN. All right, for them, they maintain a digital export enablement program. Then my second point here is complementary tools to trade agreements. That means whenever our government, Nigerian government, is going for trade agreements, we should also advocate that you have complementary tools like trade finance, trade promotion services, and targeted, upskilling programs. I'll give an illustration. 1988, I worked for 2 weeks as a marketing research officer for the Korean embassy in Nigeria. It's not on my CV. You won't find it there. Okay? But what was my job? My job then was to be a link between Nigerian business people and then the Korean business and economy. So whoever in Nigeria here wanted to do business with South Korea will come to my desk and we get all the help he or she needed. So they took it seriously as far back as 1988. And I had 2 of us on such desk, the Korean embassy. The office was here at Olosa Street. Okay? That was the commercial section of the Korean embassy. So our government also, we must advocate that we don't only have foreign missions. Every foreign mission should have a commerce department that is deliberately designed to help facilitate trade between Nigeria and the country where they are resident. And that means it's a deliberate thing. So let me now conclude this way. And my own note is just a slide. But it has nothing to do with SMEs or anything. It's just an advice that if everything is going to be fine in the end, full stop. If it is not fine, then it is not the end. So that means you don't give up. That interpretation. So tough times shouldn't make you give up. And I circle back to what both the president and our chairman said. Tough times don't last. Tough people, tough businesses that are resilient do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Biodun. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Biodun. Thank you. Thank you, sir. For those of us who were around or who had arrived when I introduced Dr. Biodun, I told you that what I was going to read or what I read about his profile was actually nothing to do with what he possessed. I tell you, if not because I moved up stage, if you give Dr. Biodun 2 hours, you will not be tired. And Dr. Biodun, thank you so much. Thank you. We need to move fast to what is next. So we're going to have a goodwill message just before we move to our second guest speaker's address. For 5 minutes, we'll have, if you can do less than 5 minutes, I will appreciate because of our time. The goodwill message from NASD PLC, I think is our sponsor for this event. We have the representative here, the managing director and CEO of NASD PLC, Mr. Eguari Kade Longe. Let's put hands together for Mr. Longe for his goodwill message. Let's clap for Mr. Longe, please. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, all. You see what kind of problem they put me into. You allow me to make a goodwill message after Dr. Abiodun Adedipe has spoken. What exactly do you expect me to say? Well, I think that I would say thank you to the organizers of this seminar, this conference. My colleagues have prepared a speech for me here. I will try and read it a bit, but I think that having listened to Dr. Biodun Adedipe, having listened to the speakers before, all protocols observed, we see the challenges and we see what needs to be done. I think that in the summation of all I am going to say is that the real challenge is in creating a system. That's where the big problem is, you know, because everybody speaks about SMEs being the lifeblood of economies, and SMEs taking us to where we should be. The median age of the population. But honestly, it does seem to me that these things are not taken very seriously. Because if they are taken seriously, just like Dr. Adedipe said, the economies that take these things seriously put structure behind them. That's what is missing. And I think that is what an organization like ours is trying to stand in the middle of. NASD is trying to create some kind of ecosystem that is reliable. People have asked me, I spoke with an old friend of mine just before this, before the session started, and they said, what is NASD? You know, people don't recognize who we are, but you see, that's not a problem for us. What the problem is what value do we bring to the system? And there is a need for organizations or organizations like ours that actually make that connection for companies that are growing and are actually trying to find their way conceptually. So while we are speaking about SMEs, and I really thank the organizers for this presentation, for this conference, it's important to really understand the lives that they live. And the life that they live is that they are probably not even internally defined, you know? So the work that we have to do to take them from where they are to where they should go is in trying to build that structure and trying to build systems around them. Those are my own thoughts. These are the thoughts of I am now going to read the thoughts of my colleagues. I won't take more than 5 minutes. Distinguished guests, captains of industry, members of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, esteemed entrepreneurs, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to represent NASD PLC at this year's SME Symposium organized by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I wish to commend the Chamber for its long-standing contribution to the growth of Nigeria's private sector and for continuously providing a platform where ideas, innovation, and enterprise thrive. Since its establishment in 1888, the LCCI has been a voice of the private sector, promoting ethical business practices, advocating sound policies, and supporting entrepreneurship. The theme of this year's symposium, Thriving in Tough Times, Strategies for SME Success, is not only timely, but deeply relevant given the current realities faced by small and medium-sized businesses across the country. We are all aware of the challenges that confront our SMEs, such as the rising production costs, inflationary pressures, foreign exchange volatility. Don't let me go through that. Dr. Adedipe has dimensioned that for us very clearly. Yet it is in these times, just like he said also, like it is in times like this that resilience and innovation define true enterprise. Across Nigeria, we continue to see small businesses adapting, rethinking, and repositioning, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Nigerian entrepreneur that is powering our SMEs. Now on NASD. At NASD PLC, we share this belief in resilience and enterprise. As Nigeria's premier over-the-counter securities exchange, NASD wasn't in Dr. Adedipe's statistics for growth in the capital markets. I hold him to that. And it always happens. Anyway, our mandate is to facilitate capital formation for public unlisted companies, as well as for viable private companies, providing them with efficient, transparent, and credible access to capital. We recognize that for SMEs to truly thrive, they must be able to access patient long-term capital that supports innovation, expansion, and sustainability. This recognition led to the creation of one of our key initiatives, the NASD Enterprise Portal, known as NASDEP. NASDEP is a secure, approved proprietary digital platform developed by NASD PLC to cater to the capital needs of SMEs and private companies. It serves as a marketplace that connects businesses seeking funding with diverse investor categories, from institutional investors to high net worth individuals, all within a regulated and structured framework. That's the system we're talking about. So what makes NASDEP unique is that it integrates the entire ecosystem of capital formation into one platform. This ecosystem includes SMEs and private companies seeking capital, investors seeking viable investment opportunities, due diligence analysts, financial advisors who provide professional services such as financial advisory services, thus ensuring transparency and governance. Governance is very important. Sponsors and incubators who introduce credible businesses and support their growth journey. NASD is the 7-market platform that facilitates the whole process. Together, these participants form a collaborative community that enhances credibility, ensures efficiency, and builds investor confidence. You know, somebody once asked, if you're looking for a loan, you go to a bank and the bank has the money. But if you're looking for an investor to power your business, where is the repository that you can go to? So it's really fragmented. So this is what NASDEP is trying to plug. So for SMEs, NASDEP provides access to a diversified investor network for raising medium to long-term capital, increased brand visibility and credibility, ease of admission and participation, a cost-effective, transparent platform for capital raising. For investors, NASDEP offers access to viable, growth-oriented companies, a credible, well-regulated marketplace, and exit opportunities for existing investment positions. And for the capital market operators, the platform promotes partnership opportunities, enhances deal origination, and supports professional advisory engagements. I think that I will also add that with the kind of platform we also have a base for government advocacy with the connection of all the participants. Participation and eligibility. To join NASDEP, companies must be registered limited liability entities at the Corporate Affairs Commission and have at least 2 years of operational history. They may be startups with proven concepts also. They must demonstrate commitment to sound governance, and the capital raised must be driven by specific business needs, such as expansion, asset acquisition, or working capital, among others. NASDEP supports multiple sectors, including technology, energy, agriculture, healthcare, housing, fashion, and creative industries, all of which have transformative potential for our economy. Our presence here today aligns with this symposium's theme, Thriving in Tough Times. At NASD, we firmly believe that SMEs do not just need to survive, they must thrive. And thriving requires collaboration between private and public institutions, between innovators and investors, and between capital market operators such as NASDEP and enablers like the Lcci. By providing access to structured, sustainable funding through NASDEP, we're equipping businesses with the tools to grow, create jobs, and contribute to economic resilience, which perfectly embodies the purpose of this symposium. In closing, I wish to commend every entrepreneur represented here today. Your courage, creativity, and perseverance continue to inspire us all. At NASDEP PLC, at NASD PLC, we remain committed to building the bridge between capital and opportunity, empowering Nigeria's SMEs to reach their full potential. Thus, to get more information on NASDEP, you may interact with our stand in the hall or by clicking Enterprise Portal on our website, www.nasdng.com. We also commend the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry for their unflinching promotion of the private sector for over a century. We look forward to deeper collaboration with the Chamber as we continue to unlock new financing pathways and drive inclusive growth across sectors. Thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you all a productive and impactful symposium. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together once again for Mr. Longe. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know whether you were a marketer at a point of your career. I don't know, but I suspect so, that Mr. Longe has rich experience in marketing brands. He had successfully, even though he told me he would not, but he has successfully taken more than 5 minutes marketing NASD PLC. Once again, Thank you so much, Mr. Lunge. All right, we'd like to now have the guest speaker, the second address. I actually don't like to obstruct the program when it's arranged. All right, so we'd like to have the road safety team. They like to give us for 10 minutes, the road safety teas for Ember Month. I'm sorry, this happened. This should have been the last one, but I'm told we are to move them up in place of what we have next. Let's put hands together for Mrs. Oluwatoyin Dowu, the unit coordinator for the teams. Let's put hands together for her, please. 10 minutes.
Good day, everyone. We are from Federal Road Safety Corps, Unit 3, Lcci, and that is Lagos Chamber of Commerce Unit. So we have invited our unit commander for Lagos Island Command to give us a few minutes of safety tips, road safety tips. I have the pleasure and privilege to invite to the podium Assistant Corps Commander Phillips E. Oga, PSC, FNIM. Thank you.
Let me stand on the existing protocol. I want to appreciate the special marshals of LCCI for inviting us to this program. Sorry, I know some people will say, why has he come to talk to us now? Are we drivers? I know some people will ask that question. This is Ember Month, and in Federal Road Safety, we have started a campaign for safe driving. We have the belief that towards the end of the year, people run anyhow, people drive anyhow because they want to achieve all that they did not achieve from the beginning of the year. And this year's theme for our Ember Month campaign is take responsibility for your safety. Stop distracted driving. Take responsibility for your safety. Stop distracted driving. What this means is that driving is not only the responsibility of the driver. Driving is not the responsibility of the driver alone. It is all-encompassing. Passengers in the vehicle, everybody, every occupant of a vehicle is a driver. By the end of this 10 minutes, you will get to understand what I mean by this. Now, first, let's know what defensive driving is. Defensive driving means driving to stay alive. Driving to stay alive. That is what defensive driving is. And now we have it involves the application of a set of drills or sequence of activities to avoid road hazards, like the use of mirror, the signals, the maneuvers, position, speed, lockout, and then final mirror check, horn, and all these applications. And most importantly, how you take care of your vehicle before you leave the premises. Now, there are unsafe driving practices that we indulge in. There are distractions which can be external or internal. Those distractions could be within or outside. We have overspeeding. We have overloading. We have illiteracy and poor skills, overconfidence, and there's what we call rates. Rates mean some people, like these commercial drivers, they will go to the extent of collecting, Odeshi, or whatever name they will call it, so that when it happens, they will disappear. We'll call it rates. So it gives them overconfidence. So if I drive anyhow, once it happens, after all, I will not be the person to die. They will do anything they want to do. So you have poor eyesight, carelessness, fatigue, tiredness, dress, complacency, driving under influence, road rage, aggression, impatience. All these are unsafe driving habits. But I want to emphasize on one. And that is why I said driving involves all of us. We decided to come here because I know that we have captains of industries here. We have DGs, directors in this place. Now, we have drivers that drive us. Sometimes we contribute to what they do. In fact, to a larger extent, we can determine what they drive on the road. If, for instance, you have a meeting by 9 o'clock and you decide to stay in your house, and you know that the chaotic nature of Lagos, for instance, will not allow you to get to that place in 1 hour. You stay until it is 30 minutes to the time and you want the driver to fly. So what do you expect? Even if he's driving slow, you would be the person to tell him, I'm late. I said, please speed on, Those are the things, that are risk factors, things that can cause crashes on the road. So you prepare your own journey ahead of time so that you will go slowly. You should be even the person to monitor your driver and say, no, I have not asked you to speed. Don't speed. At times, I will advise you, even tell the driver to slow down. There are some situations you even need to stop and pretend as if you want to ease yourself, Especially when you discover that the driver has driven for more than 3-4 hours. Fatigue sets in. Because of the fear for you, he will not come out to tell you that I'm tired, Oga, I want to rest, So he will continue to drive. So you should be the person to tell him, I want to ease myself. Or can we slow down? I want to buy this orange, by the roadside. All those are tactics that you use to slow your driver down to make sure that your journey is safe. Because we believe that your own safety is determined also by you. The driver may some of them will just enter the vehicle, their own is to drive. Oga say we are going to Abuja by land from Lagos, and he said we must get to that place by 5 o'clock in the evening. He will have to speed because he knows that if he did not speed, he will not get there at that time. So please, you will determine what he does. So we don't advise that you encourage such speeding. There are many factors, but the time is not there to allow us. But in a summary, I want us to understand that we have, like in FRSC, we have a little song that I'll sing. There's no time to sing it, but I'll just give us a little tip. If you have 200 kilometers, if you are driving at 20 kilometers, we'll say that the song you will sing that time is Give Me the Grace to Follow. But if you are driving at 40 kilometers per hour, we said, it is well with my soul. If you drive at 60 kilometers per hour, God will make a way. If you drive at 80 kilometers, I'm going higher. Yes, I am. If you drive at 100 kilometers per hour, angels are singing, you are worthy, O Lord. If you drive at 120 kilometers per hour, the door of heaven is open. So what? Why will you die? Now, if you drive at 140 kilometers per hour, nearer my God to thee. If you drive at 160 kilometers per hour, the world is not my home. The world is not my home. At 160 kilometers, you know that the song is increasing by rate. If you are driving at 180 kilometers per hour, sooner, very soon, I'm going to meet you, God. Yeah, but at 200 kilometers, I surrender. Oh, I surrender. I surrender all. I surrender all. And I told you, So these are the music that we did. We don't believe that. So our concern is that at the end of this year, all of us will see our family healthy and hearty. By the beginning of the year, and in January, all of us will reconvene again and continue our various works. Thank you very much, as God bless us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for those your songs. I like to keep my own at 60 kilometers per hour. Yes. I like to keep my own at that. And I think the summary of your speech is that we should keep it at 60 or 40. That's what I think that's the best. Because when you are getting to your 80 and 100 nearer to I don't know what that means. I want to be at 60. Nobody wants to go home. We say home is sweet, but nobody wants to go. Nigeria is hard. We want to be here. Nobody wants to go. Thank you so much for gingering us up. We'd like to take the photo of us. Dr. Adedipe needs to, and a few of our leaders needs to move. So we'll take the photo. Please, can I have the secretary here? Is there a presentation for Dr. Adedipe? We'll get that done also. Then we move to what is next. The road safety team, they've altered my program, so I continue to alter it for our benefit. So Dr. Adedipe, the president, chair of the group, and a few of our leaders, please let's come forward for the photo ops. Representative of Mrs. Okonko, please join us, Mr. William Uko. Yes, up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, President will be in the middle. No, it's okay. You'll be here, sir. No, here. NSD, please join us. Here. Let's move very close to the president. His body will not scratch us. Please, let's move close. Yes. Are you good, Francis? Yes, I want to give you another name, Francis. It's all right. So for this presentation, sir, this is to Dr. Biodun Adedipe. I'm sure Shea is afraid of moving closer to doctor. I don't know why. Are you good? Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you so much, sir. Oh, yeah. Let's give this to Dr. Adedipe. Thank you. We cannot take any other picture now. FRSC, please. We will do when the need be. Otherwise, we alter this program. I don't like us to do so. It will alter completely. There's a photo session. So I like to be back to the order of program. Will 1 minute, please. You're in this age of iPad, iTool, iPhone, everything. Everything is on high everywhere. So I have the honor to bring up stage for the next set of presentation for us, the head of strategy and research at the NIB SSPLC, who is representing Mr. Williams Uko, who is representing Mrs. Gova Nwako. Put your hands together for Mr. Williams for his presentation. They gave Mr. Williams 20 minutes. I believe he can do less than that. Right? Thank you.
So who's someone controlling the slides?
Yeah. Do they have your presentation there?
Yeah, they have.
Okay, that's fine. You can use it. But if you want them to control it, okay, anyway. So Gafar, let's put all the presentation and the control.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, distinguished guests, the LCCI executive, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I claim your indulgence on that. I also want to apologize on behalf of my executive director. She really planned to be here. If you know her, she's big on SMEs, particularly women's businesses. And she really wanted to be here, but some things came up and made it unavoidable that she's away today. But I'll do my very best to do justice to this the way she would have. And I trust we'll have an engaging time together. All right, so I'm William Uko, like I said, and we're speaking on our behalf. Do we have the slides? All right. Okay, so essentially from the topic we're given as accessing finance, credit and for SMEs, looking at this, there are many ways we could go about it. And I listened to Dr. Adedikpe's presentation, and it was quite exhaustive on what you might call the underlying operating environment, the economics of it, and how it impacts upon us as MSMEs. Now, I just want to add something to that. Next slide, please. Now, next slide. Just to introduce NIBSS. A lot of people just call us NIBS. It's the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. Founded 32 years ago by the deposit money banks and the central bank. We began essentially as the clearinghouse and many other things. We have evolved over time. And I think what most people would know us for now will be more of as being the central switch that facilitates payments. But there are many more things that are core to our own establishment. For example, facilitating interoperability for the system. Now, sometimes to appreciate interoperability, you may need to look at what Nigeria's payment system would have been if there was no interoperability. I think that's the best way to say it. Sometime in June, we had the opportunity of hosting central banks and central switches from 20 African countries here in Lagos. And they came on a learning visit to NIBS to understudy and just have a sense of what's going on here. And one of the countries, and I won't mention it out of respect, but they are known for payments globally. However, one item that was lacking and which they are concerned about is interoperability, because what it means that instead of having a central switch facilitating connections across banks, fintechs, mobile money operators, you now have to connect with each other. That's the simplest way to put it. You have to, instead of connecting to NIBS, for example, and through that you are able to do your transfers and payment within an ecosystem, you have to connect to bank A, to bank B, to bank C, to bank D. That's in itself is a major challenge. But the good thing is that all across Africa, from what we can see, a lot of countries, I think we're about 32 central switches as at the last conference in Ghana last year. And I expect that by this year, the number would have moved to probably 40-something, because people are beginning to see that the benefit in having a central switch. It's not the key point here, and we're going to bring it down into the context of what you MSMEs do. Because like Dr. Adedikpe said, you are the cornerstone, not just of the Nigerian economy, but economies globally will always acknowledge that the heartbeat of growth is the MSME sector. Next slide, please. So we need to, these are just some of the things that NIBS is noted for our platforms. We are custodians of the BVN for the country, which has run since 2014. And many other things that are there. But the key point here is that, like I said earlier, it's about capacity to ensure that the ecosystem speaks to it. I mean, players in the ecosystem speak to each other in a manner that is seamless. Something else also we're created for is to lower costs for the industry. And that's, like I said, interoperability is just one of the ways that is done. But let's go forward. Next slide, please. Now, I guess a number of you would have heard about Afrigo. Afrigo is a national payment card that was developed by NIBS through our subsidiary Afrigo Payment Services in 2023 with active support of the CBN. Now, the simple story here is whatever the global giants, MasterCard, Visa, and the others have been able to do, you have a Nigerian entity that can do that in our context. And to a large extent, not compete, but complement and also ensure some level of data sovereignty for the country. And it's if you Google around, I mean, if you check around the world, a lot of countries are beginning to adopt this concept of having their own domestic payment card. It gives a lot of benefit. We'll see it later in the big picture. However, one of the things that has happened in Nigeria is that, you see, BVN has existed in 2014. At the time in this country, BVN was the most, in fact, to a large extent, is still one of the most reliable forms of ID in the country. That is the robustness and what you might call the integrity of it for the past 10 years has not been called to question. Now, what has happened is that the current administration, of course, we can tell that this is an administration that is thinking public with a private sector driven mindset of efficiency, scale, and growth. Now, the Director General of Lcci and has initiated a partnership with NIBS where it's going to be launched very soon by the executive, where you have the general multi-purpose card, which has both the payment side of it, like any other Visa or MasterCard, but also serves as your national identity. Now, this marries two things, and this is important also for the payment sector, which all MSMEs have to play in. You have the benefit of identity layered on payments. And the beauty of it is that it's a global trend as well that helps secure the payment system. One thing we always say is that if the payment system fails, we all suffer. It's not I gain and it's not a zero-sum game in this context, because if that system goes down, God forbid, everybody feels the pinch. Next slide, please. So let's begin to go straight into the meat of the matter. Next slide. So MSMEs, this just corroborates some of the statistics that we've heard already since the beginning of this event. The key takeaway from this is that the MSMEs sector accounts for a significant chunk of the business done within the domestic economy. So looking at your topic, accessing credit, yeah, that's something that is key because we're talking about sustainability. However, next slide, please. However, we won't take it in from a slightly different perspective. The question is, why do SMEs struggle with gaining access to credit? There are many reasons. I'm sure you have a number of reasons. If we ask everybody in the room, the reasons will differ. But let's take a look at some that are typically common to most businesses. Next slide. Now, imagine, what we tried to do here was to paint a picture of the typical scenario you all face day to day, maybe at the beginning of the year, halfway through the year. But imagine, this is what we call the CEO's typical dilemma. There could be many things here, but we just focused on a few. Taxes, 6 to 12 months down the road, will my business still be relevant? What are the things that are on the horizon that could impact on my business? And on and on. But the key point relevant to today is, how do I generate sustainable funding for my business? Now, the quote there speaks to something. The success of your business, of the MSME, of any MSME, is the ability to regenerate, think and rethink and reinvent itself in any particular phase or cycle of the business or the economy. That's the important point. It's not so much a location play all the time or a funding play. It's about the ability to set yourself in a position to remain successful in a sustainable manner. So we're going to speak to the access to credit, but it's important to realize that it's a big picture and it's a mindset thing. Next slide, please. So the challenges are numerous. We've talked about a few of them today. Infrastructure deficits have always been there. I mean, if you go back even to the 80s, to the 70s, there was always talk about infrastructure deficit. So it's not a new thing. The point is, people succeeded in that era. So it is not the infrastructure deficit that per se, or these problems listed here per se that are the issue only. It is the capacity to position ourselves to leverage the opportunities here and to make the best of them until even things improve. So take, for example, internet connectivity. I mean, NCC, I think it's about 50% or something like that. Yeah, it's not what we desire it to be, but businesses have thrived anyway. So the point is, what makes business A thrive better than business B, or business B is failing, business A is thriving in the same environment. So the challenges exist. Nobody is denying them. Next slide, please. Now we're looking at a few practical steps still on this financing thing. Next slide. What we've done here is to paint a picture as much as possible as to what each business has to deal with. One of the challenges about businesses is that, and I speak from a standpoint of experience, because before getting into the financial services sector, I did practice as a professional. And I noticed that a lot of people, I came in with this mindset of, look, businesses are done in a decent way. You have a contract. I'll do my best to keep to my contract. You do your best. But, people would, you do stuff for someone to tell you, okay, oh, I've seen your drawings. I've seen your stuff. By the way, I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, and my wife said he can do it. Those things happen. People come up with all sorts of things because some people don't see the MSMEs as anything to, important. But it's how you see yourselves. The important thing first, it's not just going for the money, it's having the structure. And let's be honest, in this whole picture, the real thing you are funding is the productive part of the business. Every other thing is support. Now, for every MSME, you have to step back. While the markets are different, the subsectors are different, this structure largely at the base level applies to practically every MSME. Now, here's one problem MSMEs tend to face. And if you look at the notes on the side, you'll see what I'm talking about. You see, position and titles don't bring money. It's hands-on execution that brings money. However, every position on the first panel up is at base level. As the business grows, then they can begin to have, enhancement, and the titles will change. But here's where the challenge is, and I saw it, I've experienced it a lot. People want to be called CEO, want to be called the titles, but they haven't reached that point in terms of inner capacity. So it becomes a struggle of identity. And then sometimes, even when the money comes, it ends up being misapplied. I'll give you a practical example. I remember some years ago, I think it was 2015, I was trying to book tickets for my children, and I was saying, okay, let them just go through a road tour with their mother and see, because that was before all this Boko Haram, all the kidnappings and stuff. I was standing at God is Good, and I said, okay, you guys will buy the tickets. On your way back, you come by air. Somebody came in and he kept saying, And nobody asked him. He kept saying, I'm a CEO myself. I'm a CEO myself. I'm just coming here because they said I should come. But I looked at, what is disturbing this man? And I mean it, it's no joke. I was standing, I was collecting my ticket. He said, by the way, yes, I want to book for tomorrow. I'm a CEO. I'm just here because, there's something he said, I'm just here because they said I should go by road this time. But so, you don't need anybody to tell you that man, if he gets money, he will misapply it. Because he hasn't gotten, the point is, the titles, you grow into the titles, you grow into position. But the funding goes to the production. And production is best done at base level. Like we do in mathematics, first principles, what can you do to get it working? It is when it has started working, then you can begin to refine as the need arises. And then the funding begins to make sense and it's scalable. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, I deliberately inserted examples for a reason. In business schools, I remember back in the day, most of the examples used to be IBM, Ford, and all that. Here's where people don't get it. MSMEs, you have a gold mine in your hand, literally. It's the way you manage it. Now, this is Volkswagen back in the 40s, Second World War, right? Let's be honest. If you were living then, would you have called Volkswagen a conglomerate or an MSME? The answer is obvious. Though it was funded by government, I agree, but in the real sense, it was a small business designed to meet a need during World War II. Look at the logo and look at the size. Even when B2 came to Nigeria in our growing years, B2 was an efficient car with a very funny nickname that it was given. But the point I'm making is that the mistake MSMEs make is that they think, some MSMEs, not you all, some MSMEs think that the vision and the name and the mission statement you start with, if you ever change, it means you've lost it. It's not true. Look at where they started. The vision was to have an affordable car for every German, right? Of course, because of the Second World War, they didn't have access to international markets, but they achieved the vision. After the war, see what has happened. Today, look at the designs that are coming out. This is even some years ago. This is an old picture. But the key point here is that it's about evolution. You can't start small and think small forever. You start small because that is your capacity at that time. You maximize that capacity and growth will come naturally. And then the funding, again, we're still coming to the funding. The funding required at small, in quotes, if used well, the person at small will look better than the person at big who is not using his funds well. So look at what's happened. Look at the evolution. Today, Volkswagen is a brand that is all over the world. Next slide. Take a look at Microsoft. Same thing. I mean, a business that started in a garage could not have been called a conglomerate or a mid-tier corporate. Right? I was joking with Longe back in the day. You had capital, the capital arm of the businesses, the investment banking, the clientele will always be different from commercial banking. This kind of company could not have been called even a mid-tier corporate in our banking days. Where is Microsoft today? The key point is, it's about growth. An MSME entrepreneur who has not settled in his mind to enjoy the journey of growth in terms of the building of the company from stage to stage and financing at each stage will crash the business because the funding will be seen just to keep up with maybe some imagined euphoria than to meet the need of the business. Now, this is practical so that we can see that these businesses, MSMEs, are the starting point. Big businesses don't drop from anywhere else. They start from maximizing the MSME stage. Next slide. Let's keep it practical. I'll leave Apple, it's the same story. Next slide. No, go back. Silverbird. Now, I'm excited about this because I remember in our secondary school days, right? In the 80s, when Ben Bruce started Silverbird, all his concerts, Shalama and the rest of them, were held in National Theatre. He didn't have Silverbird Galleria. He didn't have so many. In fact, it was a new kind of business in Nigeria's economy. It was a risk. National Art Theatre was the only place that was well maintained that he could do. And he was renting space for the business. But the key point I'm trying to drive at here is that consistently doing that generated the funds. I mean, I won't say I've had a one-on-one discussion with him, but if you watch from a distance how this worked, I'm told, I read back then that he was classmates to the president of Motown while they were in university in America. So when pop music came on the scene and became popular globally, particularly among the Black community, from the Jacksons to the rest of them, he leveraged that relationship to bring one. From bringing one, he brought two. He kept bringing them. And people were like, okay, they'll go and watch. But obviously, if you check his own story, like I said, I don't know, I don't have access to his financials, but you could see consistency. Meanwhile, they had a shop in Yaba, right? I mean, drive past the Domino shop in Yaba. They were just there. That was the business. I'm trying to get something across. We will come to the financing in the last slide. But the point is, there was a structure. There was a shop running. This other bit came. Now, this bit has outclassed the shop. We don't talk much about the Domino shop that they were running at Alagomeji or something like Asabo. But now, they were building. An MSME that does not know that thinks financing is only about lending will miss the point. It's about saving and consolidating until you get to a point where you can stand. And that's exactly what happened. Today, we're talking about Silverbird Galleria, talking about Silverbird Television. The point is, it started from, in truth, Domino Shop, Sabo Yaba. Then to those shows where as students were taken to go and watch them. But there was consistency. Yes, Naira had stronger value then, it's true. But if he had blown the money on status, he wouldn't be here today. So let's move on quickly. This other one is it's the next one. Now, I talk about this with a lot of, a bit of nostalgia because we're classmates, even in different departments. And here was a guy who was, now we're coming to funding. Funding. You see, one of the slides we're going to talk about, we'll talk about the debt equity question. Because MSMEs, unfortunately, if you interact with some MSME owners, it's all about, I don't have capacity, I don't have funds. Yeah, you may not have funds, but you may have things that you can convert to funding, staring you in the face. If you're not looking well enough, you could miss it. Now, like I said, I had the opportunity, we're classmates, yes. But in his own case, somebody would argue his father was rich. But I was telling someone today, his father was a trader. For anybody who grew up in the East, in University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, father was a trader. He was doing business. He was well known. However, if you go back today, I'm sure people will know him more than his father. Maybe he admitted there was some seed fund from his dad, yes. But the point I'm trying to make is that with his story, we had just finished BSc. We had come back for MSc in our own course. And I was talking with this childhood friend who said, he just told me that by tomorrow, so he mentioned Genesis, and I was like, we were on that same Zik Avenue when we had that conversation. He said, I was shocked. That Genesis, look at that picture there. Ground floor on Zik Avenue is what has blossomed into this. How? If you check, it was about consistency, right? The business was growing. He was talking, no noise. People didn't know him. Finally moved to Port Harcourt, continued with the same consistency before he came to Lagos. Now, here's the joke about it. He's now running cinemas. We were the same. Imagine Silverbird started 80. He started cinemas probably in 2015 or so. But the point is, even with the age gap, right? I mean, he must have been a student too in secondary school when Silverbird started. But the business, everybody had his own path. But the key point I'm driving at here is that he saw a need, met the need, but kept a low profile until the business grew to a point where it could not be denied. And he did not come to Lagos. He went to Port Harcourt. Back then, before I mean, a lot of things have changed, but the key commercial nerve centers were Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, technically. Of course, he moved to Port Harcourt. He got to a point where they had dominated, they had become so dominant there that by the time they moved to Lagos, I don't think it was so much about funding, it was more about diversification. And today, we have literally have a conglomerate. But the key point I'm driving at is the path to it may have been different, but there was consistency and step by step. The story we are seeing was not an overnight success. It was 1991. Today is about 30 years. And that's when the real blossoming is coming out. So the key point I'm driving at from this slide is that try not to get stuck in that MSME mode only. You started as MSME, but there is a vision that you should be aiming at. Not for the title's sake, not just for the sake of it, but because the business should grow to a point where you will struggle to call it MSME. Other people will be saying, no, this one is not MSME anymore. If the banks will be coming to you to throw things at you, that's when you know you have power. Yes, you can start with going and saying, can you fund this? The bank will go back to your structure and look at how well and efficiently you have run a small business before funding. But when you get to a point of doing that consistency, you will find that the banks will be falling over themselves to ask you to take the facility. Then you know you have won. But quickly, let's wrap up with the next few slides. Financing the debt equity question, quickly. Next slide. Now, I want us to go back to the previous slide. I like us to be cautious here because we are all at different positions in our businesses, right? Let's not, again, I speak from my experience as a banker. Sometimes you're talking with people and you discover that the need that they think, they think it's money, but sometimes it may not just be money at that particular point. It might just be some reorganization. Other times the need might be money. Now, but by the time you have a proper conversation with an experienced financial analyst, it's like having a conversation with a doctor. You go to a doctor and usually it's about pain. But pain is only a symptom of something. It takes the expert to help you see what the real problem is. And that's where you're able to get funding for what you need. And let me tell you, let's be honest. Some MSMEs don't understand that. They think balance sheets and things like that are for the big guys. No. However rudimentary it is, anybody seeking to invest wants to see how well the funds were managed at that seed stage. That's why I always tell people, sometimes when you're starting off, it might just be seed money from friends. The key, what you are trading at that point is trust. And the trust usually will start from those that have known you over time. The minute you make the best of that money, then those that didn't know you before will have something to look back to and say, if he could do or she could do X, Y, Z with this at this level, then it means if I put this level of funding, I will see efficiency in use. And that's how the growth will be sustainable. So like I said, just take a look at this slide and see where you fit at each point in time. And be confident that there is funding for every phase of the business. You just have to be honest and you need some guidance to help you see it. And then you'll be able to get what you need. Next slide quickly, please. So this one is very important because sometimes before you ask for money, look at spontaneous financing. Look at the things you can do to raise money without getting a loan. For example, inventory days. I mean, why do you have to hold down so much stock? Why am I prepaying so many things? How effective are my collections? How quickly do I get my money back? Do you understand? How well can I negotiate extended payment days? It's important to do this for yourself before you go to a bank or to any lender, because this enhances your credibility and builds trust in what you're doing. So like I said, I've learned for many years that spontaneous financing is one key part that helps your efficiency, but also markets your business beyond what you can imagine. because it shows people that if I give this man or this woman money, they will not mess it up. Because there are two things. There's capacity to pay, there's willingness to pay. But this helps you and I to know what our capacity is. And then it helps us negotiate funding that is necessary to fund production so that we do not end up misapplying it and losing the goodwill that comes with funding. So I think I have 2 more slides here. Quickly, let me see. Quickly, please. Quickly. So this is the big picture I was talking about. This is where you play. We as NIBS have facilitated a payment system, but not just a loan. We have other switches, payment processors. CBN has done a great job over the last 15 years structuring the entire payment ecosystem, and they're continually reinventing it. What we have done is that because we are central switch, we run a commercial business, but we run it from a standpoint of public trust. That's why you don't see us talk about profit. It's about, yes, we must make money to sustain the business, but it must engender public trust. Now, see the benefits we're enjoying as a country. We have a system on this NIP alone, instant payment that we've all enjoyed since 2011. NIBS launched it, yes, the first account-based payment system in the world. Fine. However, it was to meet a need in Nigeria. You know what the need was? Let's be honest, cash, right? Bankers, it was costing a lot of money and even lives to transport cash. But more than just that, the problem was that when I send money to you, I pay for your goods. You need you say, look, go and check first. I want to make sure the money has entered. We don't run a credit system that is efficient like the West, right? So the NIP was a response to Nigeria's peculiar situation. And it's still here with us today. You need to be sure that the money has entered before you part with goods. That's just the principle. What we've done as NIBS is to put it out there. Banks have renovated. Now, today, fintechs are innovating on it. But here's the point. Look at it, the big picture. And that's why you see the federal government is now moving in. Things like what you might call revenue assurance, making sure your tax systems are efficient. It all riding on what was done 15 years ago. That's why I said there's hope for the country, because we have grown, but it was consistent growth. It wasn't just a NIBS thing, it was a country thing. Now you have you have the executive, the fiscal side, who are now leveraging this thing for more efficiency in tax and other things. But the point is, as MSMEs, you're already part of this picture. And it can only get better once you manage your own side of the business very well. Next slide. So I think it's now, no, next slide. All right, the final slide. What I would say, these are just suggestions that we should keep in mind. All right, we must recognize our capacity at each point in time and play to our strength. The analogy I always use is that you can have a young lady who is not rich. She'll go dressed to a party, and somebody who has millions will feel intimidated by the way she dresses. Same thing for men. Not because it's money, but because it's efficiently used and playing to your strengths. Number 2, you don't put yourself under excessive pressure. Set realistic goals, right? Know what your capacity is, like we've done. By the time you've done spontaneous, by the time you've looked at your balance sheet properly, you know what your capacity is at that point in time. So if you're putting a stretch target for yourself, you're only stretching yourself to do more, but you know that you can't fall below this position. And there are a number of other things that I think we should take away with. But the key point is that please don't, MSMEs, you don't remain small forever. Your aim should be to emulate the companies that started as small. And they grew, not because they didn't want to be called MSMEs again, but because the MSME transformed into a big business that is giving birth to other businesses. That's the way I think it will work well for everyone. Thank you very much.
Please, let's put hands again for Mr. Williams. You will all agree with me that he had represented Mr. Nwankwo very well. You also noticed that he had spent more than the minute we gave. I deliberately kept mute because I was enjoying I was listening very well, and I enjoyed every bit of what he had said. Once again, Mr. Williams, thank you so much for doing a great job for Mrs. Nwankwo. All right, we would like to move to what is next, which is the panel session. As usual, I will hand over this session to the moderator. I believe is very key. What I would just advise is that we should have a pen and paper to draft our questions ready. After the session, I will moderate the question and answer session. We like to determine the method. Either you write it out or I'll give you the microphone to ask your question. Then I'll decide whatever it is that is going to work, as long as you're going to pick the microphone and start to give us, lectures, or, try to use the opportunity to preach to us what we should know about the Bible and what we shouldn't. Usually, sometimes when you give the microphone to people like that, they start to elaborate more on what the speaker had said, usually preaching. So I'll determine the method later, but let me allow the moderator for this session, Mr. Adeyemi Olaniyonu, to please come up and have his panelists and take the session forward. Let's put hands together for Mr. Adeyemi Olaniyonu. Thank you, sir. Mr. Adeyemi is coming with his water bottle. That's fine. So your seat. I don't know your panelists. I don't have their name on the program. Maybe there are 2 or 4. There are 3. Okay, that's fine. So I will need to take off one of the seats so that you can see them so well. Once again, please, let's put hands together for the moderator of this session. Bring them up.
Okay. Good afternoon. Standing on existing protocols. So first of all, let me thank the Vice President of Lcci. The Deputy President of Lcci. Thank you very much, sir, for your word of advice. And to all other great entrepreneurs here, we have listened. We have heard 2 key experts. One on how to survive as a business. And I strongly believe that as SME, as we all know that we are the engine room of Nigerian economy. So this process, what we're going to do now is like we are looking at how to put oil in the engine of a motor vehicle, how to have a good crankshaft, how to have a good piston, so that we can fire on all cylinders. That is what we are about to do. We have a sound engine. Having a sound engine means that we're going to have a very sound vehicle. So what does that mean? As SME, if we are successful, our economy will be successful. Our country too will be successful. So I want to use this opportunity to, first of all, call on Mr. William. Your job was not finished. So he's the head of strategy and research at NIBSS. So you are welcome back, sir. Yeah. So that was a thought-provoking presentation. Yeah, thank you. So I also want to use this opportunity to call on Mr. Oludare Fajimolu. Is from NASD. So I didn't get the title well. So okay, you're welcome, sir. Yeah, can join us. Okay. Then the third person is Usman Imana, is the CEO of Friska Farms Limited. So you are welcome, sir. Okay. So, like I said, that a sound engine, like SME, a sound SME ecosystem will lead to a sound economy for our great country, Nigeria. So what we're doing now is to dissect, look at how SME, like he has said, how can we grow? How can we move from this current position we are to the next phase? So I want to start with Mr. Usman, who is a business owner. So because we have been hearing from the other side. So let me start with the business owner. So my first question to you is that, like, your brand now is a recognizable brand in Nigeria awareness space. So what also, what I want to ask is that, but sustaining a business is a different game. And what has kept your company going through all the difficult seasons?
Thank you very much. If I understand the question is what has kept us going?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think the first thing is deciding that you are in for the long run. And it speaks to resilience. It speaks to grit. The journey has not been easy. And over time, we've had to learn from, we've learned from experience. I mean, you go to MBA, you go for MBA and they teach you a lot of things. But when you get to the business proper, these things start to, you start to see them, you start to live them in reality, especially in Nigeria, coming from COVID and then the cash crunch. And, you know, there's always one fire to put out. But I think that one thing that we've learned over time that has kept us going is to see, because as SMEs, there are a lot of advices out there that as SMEs, you will, you think that they are going over your head, probably because you don't think that you have the resources to implement them. One of such advices is you'll be told that, oh, you need to put structure in your business. You need to, you know, for you to grow from SME to become a conglomerate, you must have structures and systems. And I am fortunate to have worked in corporate Nigeria. I had like 15 years experience working for multinationals, right? So when you say structures and systems, from that perspective is very, very huge. But running an SME has made me understand that even if you're selling cola nut, and this is not to say that cola nut is not important, but even if you're selling pure water, there's still a level of structure and systems that you can put in your business. And if you can systemize some areas of your business, the key areas of your business, you can be sustainable over any economic situation that you find yourself. The things that we have been able to do we have been able to look at our business in three areas, right? The part that creates value, which is production. The part that sells the value, which is marketing and sales. And then finance and admin, how money moves in from production to sales and comes out net positive, right? So those three areas are areas that we have dashboards that we monitor. We've been able to systemize it in such a way that we know what we put in, we know our capacity, we know what we can sell. So if we are producing over what we can sell, we pause so that we don't get into trouble having too much inventory. So I think that the key to having a business that can be sustained through any economic situation is to make sure that you understand how money goes in and comes out, and you have systems that you can track. You can't keep solving problems every day. You need to learn after solving a problem and systemizing the solution. That's the difference between a business and a hustle. A hustle will continue to put out fires every day, but a business has built a system that has a fire system that is not that those problems will not come, but because you've learned from past experiences and built processes that can solve repeatable problems, you are able to, just keep growing without it looking as if you are sweating. But you're sweating, but it doesn't look very obvious because you found a method to the madness.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Like I said, keep an eye on your money. Like money is like oxygen to business. So without money, the business will die off. So that will take me to Mr. Oludare. And my question is all about finance. Like he has said that major 99% of business owners in Nigeria, their first problem is access to finance. That's the first thing you hear from most business owners. I need money. So I want you to look at, help us dissect this question. Access to funding is always like a major barrier. So in your own experience, what are the biggest misconceptions SMEs have about raising capital? And how can SME prepare themselves to be investor ready?
Thanks for the question. So like you said, that's usually the first thing that SMEs would say. And there are a lot of misconceptions, one of which would be that they don't have collateral, that's why I can't raise capital. Or I don't know a big man, probably in one government office or somewhere that I don't have. But I think one of the major, the main misconception I would say is the fact that they think that investors prefer big companies. So they'll probably think maybe if I were like a Nestle, investors will look at me. Or if, so in the assumption that Nestle has the collateral, Nestle is connected, or it has international backing and so on. But usually what's the real problem is not that, those are not the real problems. The real problems are things that have been highlighted here. Just like he said, internal processes, that is like number one. And the reason those big companies, the reasons that investor will prefer a big company is because the big company can validate or substantiate whatever they say they are doing. So the first main thing that an SME needs to get together are the financials. So I've interacted with SMEs approaching us about capital raise. Almost a decade in business, they do not have an audited financial statement. So it is at that point that they then begin to look for an auditor. You don't need to have, your auditor does not need to be among the top four, the big four as they are called. But there are many accounting firms that can, render that service at a reasonable price. You need to validate your capacity to deliver value. That will be represented in your annual report. You need an accounting system internally that can also update your financials on the go, your management accounts, because that is usually the first point of call when you're interacting with investors. You want to raise capital. How much do you want to raise? And what do you want to use it for? Which takes us back to your history. How have you been spending the money that that you have been using? What has been your source of capital over time? How efficient, what type of returns are we expecting? You cannot answer those questions if you do not have your financials in place. And then, of course, your internal structure. Most SMEs start from an entrepreneurial drive or an entrepreneurial project. There is an opportunity, you want to solve it. So usually there is that system where you start in your living room or on your dining table. That is where your office is at the beginning of the period, or you rent a small shop somewhere. So those are the kind of things. And then you learn to leverage spontaneous financing and go. But you have to get out of that hustle mindset and get to the point where you realize that your company is a different entity. You have to pay yourself salary, so that you don't just put your hands inside the business to run your own personal affairs. You have to separate and distinguish your personal life from the entity that you run. So those are the things that speaks to your systems, that speaks to your operations. Those are the kind of things that would actually give the credibility that you are seeking for, that investors will make them look at your business to say, they like your business because you actually have value that you're delivering. There's a process and system to it. So that's really the main conception, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like you have said that basically people need to have system, their financials must be intact. Yeah. So it's quite enlightening to people to hear that. So my next question will go to Mr. William. Mr. William, that was a fantastic presentation. Then, yeah, because you were hands-on. You really, I think you have depth when it comes to businesses and strategy. So I'm quite impressed. So now, if you want to advise policymakers that, okay, one actionable reform that can unlock credit for SME, what would that be?
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, from a policy standpoint, when I spoke, I alluded to some things that have been done in the past, and you discover that every administration, right from our growing years, had its own view of the problem. So as we are today, if we're to look at unlocking the treasure with MSM from a regulatory standpoint, they've done some of them, but let me put it this way. Let's look at what they have done, just a couple of them, just to put context. You find out that they may not be doing it as efficiently as they say, but nearly every level of government has realized that you have to facilitate ease of doing business. It's not whether you need to. It's now a question of how well you're doing it, because they've realized that if you continue to allow this haphazard approach where anybody collects taxes, anybody collects levies, not only does the government lose, but people get irritated and just switch off. And they now start planning how to subvert it. So I think that's on track. However, as we go on, right, I'm trying to stay away from that thing that, like my colleagues have spoken about, just the cash, the mistakes of the past, cash to people without a structure. It's just as well as throwing the money away, because as good, well intended as it is, you might as well call it a grant. But if you want to unlock it, I think one of the things that the policymakers can do is to ensure that people have access to, let's put it this way, is the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure in place that will enable people bring down the cost of their businesses. And when I say digital infrastructure, let's look at roads, for example. You build a road from point A to point B, beyond just taking people easing access, it facilitates the transportation of goods and services, so it boosts business. Now, the digital infrastructure is the key thing. Let me give an example. This was from my days in banking. You discover that something as basic as broadband licenses and right of way. There were some states in Nigeria that the governors just held on to the land. I am the custodian of land by virtue of the Land Use Act. Come and pay X amount for your license. But there was another state within the same geopolitical zone, that was in the Southwest, that said, look, they literally gave companies, gave them tax holidays to come and establish, because they were looking at the multiplier effect. At the end of the day, when the people start using it, they will make the money that they will make more money than they imagined they could make. But some other people were looking at the initial taxes that those people will pay to set up, to have right of way. I don't know if you're getting the point. It's the thinking. What the government is actually doing this, at least at the federal level, building infrastructure that people can layer on. But I think, and in addition to that, I think it's just for them to sustain the mindset. It is not so much about the levies at the initial point. It is about sustaining what they're doing now. I'm sure if you've heard this statement about digital public infrastructure, it has come up in conversations. It means just simple. It's three things: payment, identity, connectivity. And I just gave an example. The NIMSI-NIBS collaboration for that card, which would be a payment and ID card, is just one example of at least 1,001 things that could come out. So I think we're on the right track. There's a lot of conversation around collaboration right now. So once we have our digital highway, public infrastructure in place, and people can access and do different things, Nigerians are innovative by nature. We'll keep coming up with the business models that will thrive. And I think we're on track for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like if you look at some of the initiative of the government, like this asset register, this BOI, I think they are trying to recapitalize BOI. There's Bank of Agriculture. But if you look at the impact, I don't think the impact is significant.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You see, think about, I prefer to think about it this way. If I didn't have the benefit of working within maybe a NIBS, I may not have realized just how far these initiatives have gone. Take, for example, 10 years ago, we're talking TSA, right? The government came in, the former administration initiated it, but they didn't really get it on. Then another administration came and took it further. Now you have an administration that's not just thinking TSA. They've come up with different models such that you, for want of to simplify it, you find out that what the government is trying to do is make collections easy and seamless, such that the people just do it as a matter of course, right? Government gets what it wants, people get their services. You have a minister, for example, in digital innovation now that came up, carried through his private sector drive into empowering, bringing into our space, digital innovations and stuff. So I think really for us to appreciate the picture, which is what we said in our mail, is the big picture. It's going to take a while, right? There are initiatives currently in NCC, Ministry of Digital Public Infrastructure. There's the CBN on one hand. So I think it's actually when the open banking, for example, comes to be in Nigeria that we really appreciate the amount of work that has been done over the last 3-4 years in the background. Because that is those initiatives that will bring it to the fore, that what we are doing, what as a country we have achieved. But right now, there's a lot happening. It seems to be happening here a little, there a little. But I think the biggest gauge of it is, I use this example a lot of times. When we got our GSM license as a country, how many remember that just before the license came out, we had a government that was saying that GSM was a threat to national security. That was the way they felt at that time. And you can't blame them. The global economy was different. But when GSM came, the businesses were basically call center.
Yeah.
Today, it is that same technology that is funding fintechs. It's that same technology that is funding this money lending that we are saying. It's the same GSM that is funding the PTSA, this POS thing that that has made life, a little bit easier for person-to-person transaction. It's the same technology. So all I'm saying is that was 20 years ago, but look at us today. Yeah. It's the same thing that is happening behind the scenes, particularly with the federal government, and the states are already taking their cue. And I expect that we'll see the results as time goes on.
Thank you very much. So back to Mr. Oludare, like Nigerian Association of Security Dealers, if you want, for the benefit of us, how can you support us as business owners? What can you do for us as a company?
Okay, NASD is to put it in a very simple way, it's a stock exchange. Our license, we have a license we are licensed by Securities and Exchange Commission to own and operate an OTC securities exchange. Over the years, technology has leveled the playing field. So for the public market, it's the same process that you have for trading. We have an open auction system for bidding and offers to buy shares and so forth. And also over the years, we also have obtained several other approvals from SEC, one of which is the enterprise portal, which Mr. Lunge mentioned earlier. So the way the enterprise portal works is it's like a capital market for private companies or a private capital market for SMEs. So it's essentially integrates the ecosystem, the capital market ecosystem, with the SME business arm or a business community. So it is like a first point of connection between the SMEs and the capital market. And the good thing is you don't have to convert to a PLC. You can maintain your private status as a limited liability company and still interact with NASDAQ. So just to create a very simple process or system is a company comes in and registers on the platform for free. You submit your documentations. You must have been in business for at least 2 years. So to ensure that there's a real business behind it, it's not just ideas, except if the concept has already been proven. And then you submit your financials, must be properly licensed by whichever industry. So if you're in the food business, for instance, you need NAFDAC. If it is manufacturing, SON, and the rest of them. So those documents will be screened, or we'll go through those documents to ensure that only credible companies pass through the system. So once that is done, then we facilitate the interaction with other capital market operators like financial advisors that will help you package your documents or package your projects to ensure that it is. So at the end of the day, you are getting an information memorandum that can be shared with investors. Then, so investors like HNIs, angel investors, and co. So the whole process, NASD serves as a custodian of the whole process, facilitating the whole process. And then the instruments that you use to raise your capital at the end of the day is then noted in a closed market also. So because you're a private company, your details will not be shared with the public markets. So, but there is a closed market, we can call it a private market, where certain investors and other capital market operators can interact with your details, so that, and that the main benefit, one of the benefits of that is the fact that when you then need to raise, probably you are scaling your business, you already have a track record with these people. You are not in totally new enterprise to them. They're already familiar with you. And over time, you can raise additional capital or different types of instruments, equities, and NASD currently also have a platform for commercial papers, which in that case will be debt instruments. So it facilitates the capital raising, facilitates your visibility, ensuring that you are visible before within the capital market ecosystem, and also facilitates that visibility, ensuring that you're before the investors. And then, of course, different types of instruments are also available that you can use to raise your capital depending on your business needs.
Okay, thank you very much. If you need more information, I think you have an information desk outside, so they can get more information. So, Mr. Usman, like I said, investors. As a business owner, and there's this, you hear business owners saying, no, I don't want them to take over my company. That's number one. Then you hear some people, I can't do partnership. And it's to be honest, it's very, very hard to do partnership in this part of the country. So what can you say about all this kind of mindset that, somebody wants to invest in my company? No, that means that they are going to take over the company from me. How do we work out through this process? Because if you look at all the great companies abroad, it's people that have brought money into those companies for them to grow.
Okay. People have valid reasons for those kind of opinions. And probably because they've seen where, people have been burnt, or from experience, that's why they are thinking that way. But the truth is, if you can't scale a business with trust issues. If you have trust issues, it's very difficult to scale a business, because let's even put the investors aside. You need people to run your business. So if you have trust issues, you can't even step aside and you can't scale a business if you are on the battlefield. You need to step out and have people run, have systems run for you to be able to scale. So if you have trust issues, you can't even scale, right? So in terms of partnership, my opinion is that I wouldn't advise that you experiment with people's money. At the beginning of the business, it's always good for you to use sweat capital, use your own money to prove your concept. I'm talking like this because in terms of funding, I've had a bad experience. Took money at a time when the dollar was a particular amount, at the time when inflation, just before inflation, and just before increase in diesel prices. So it was a bad experience. But that is not to say that financing or having partners is not good. It's just to understand where you need it. If I had my way in terms of funding for businesses, especially SMEs in the manufacturing sector, because government, there have been a lot of interventions, and you've had issues of people have misappropriated funds, diverted funds. A lot of the financial institutions have a very, very heavy bad debt portfolio. I think that for businesses to grow, if you want to fund businesses to grow, I think that instead of funding directly, invoices should be funded. So let the business go and produce and supply. Now I'm talking about manufacturer. I'm talking about my own segment. So an SME produces tomato paste, and then they come and meet you that, oh, I need money. Money for what? The first thing is, what do you need the money for? In most cases, people just, business owners just, because I have a lot of colleagues, I need money. If you drill down, they don't even know what they need the money for. And just like he said in his presentation, money must go into production, not to lifestyle. A lot of times in this country, people take money and they use it to fund, to create the status that they feel that they should have because they are business owners. So let the business go and produce, and let them supply and get an invoice. Then you fund that invoice. That way, you are funding people that are productive. If you are a serious business owner, right, and your invoice is going to be funded, your suppliers will give you credit. But a lot of times, they say money is like a spirit. You get huge funding and you don't have the absorptive capacity. You start to think, let me do this, let me do that, let me do this. It's happened to many people. So one needs to be very careful about how you take funds. That's one. Then two, in terms of even taking the funding, and this is not to talk down on any type of business. You see, a trader and an entrepreneur, they're different. Somebody with a trader's mindset and somebody with an entrepreneur's mindset, they're different. A trader is transactional. I want to buy, sell, make my money. An entrepreneur wants to build over time. So they're probably selling the same thing that the trader is selling, but they're building a brand because they know that it is that brand that will secure their business over a long time. A trader is ready to, if he sells, if this business is not moving, he will enter the next business. But an entrepreneur wants to build something that would outlive them. If you are taking money for trade and you are taking money to build a business, there are two different routes. Now, who you are taking money from matters. You are an entrepreneur and you take money from somebody with a trader's mindset, it will most likely end in tears. But vice versa, I think you get what I'm trying to say. So it's important that you know who you are doing business with. And like I said, people who have this mindset, it's not the best, but they are probably talking from experience. A lot of people have been burnt. Not because, it might even be because that they are at fault. They take money from somebody with a trader's mindset and they mismanage that money and they're not able to resolve issues at the end of the day, and then people lose their businesses and all. I've seen a situation where somebody comes to meet me and says, okay, I want to give you money. And then he's already saying, oh, I want you to do this, do that. And I can see that what they are interested in is how they can just make money in the short term. But we have a different vision. Like he said, you start small, but you should have, and the goal is big. We know where we're going to, we have a vision of where we're going to, and we know that it's going to take time. So I can't take money from that kind of person because I know that in the long run, it's going to be an issue. Your personalities, where you're getting the money, your personalities you must be in sync with who you are taking money, because it's not just money, right? If it was about money, throw the money on the ground and let the business grow. Do you get? Somebody has to do the legwork to make that money become something.
Yeah, that's to add value.
Exactly. So I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well said. Thank you very much. So let me ask for your closing shots. What advice will you give business owners that are seated here, that are trying to just stay afloat?
Okay.
Not to give up.
See, if you don't know how to sell, don't bother about doing business. Go and look for a paid job, because sales will solve any problem that you have in your business. A lot of people take the title CEO, but they're not ready to sell. It is sales that, forget every other thing that is being said. Even the person that wants to give you money wants to see your sales. So if you can't sell, if you don't have sales, you don't have a business, right? If you have proper sales, you can self-fund to an extent. So for me, I think in the number of packs of the products that I have, if we have a project, that's the first thing that I think before I think outside to look for funding. Again, not that looking for funding is bad, but I still have PTSD from banks chasing me for their money. So I'm still recovering from that PTSD. So maybe that's why I'm talking the way I'm talking. But the truth is, if you are thinking, oh, I need 50 million naira, what volume of your products can you sell? Because if you call it a business, there will be a margin. And if you can think in the numbers, you can look for how to sell. One of the speakers was talking about expanding, right? You can either expand product-wise or expand geographically. The beauty of it is that we're in Nigeria, and in West Africa and Central Africa, we are still somewhat like the Europe. We sell our products. We don't do most of our sales through modern trade, because the supermarkets and the pharmacies will owe us. So we had to build a sales system that was digital, direct to customer, because we get our money upfront and we don't lose value in terms of discounts that we give the supermarket. So we built it to a stage where 65 to 70% of our income comes from direct to customer. So we've had a model where we run advert. I mean, it's so empirical that I know that if I spend this amount of money, this is the amount of sales, this is the amount of leads that we'll get, this is our conversion rate, this is our fulfillment rate, and this is what's going to come in. So we've been able to run it across Nigeria. We've been able to expand to run the same model in Ghana, in Cameroon, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania. We're trying to do Malawi and South Africa. The thing is, the beauty of what has been happening is that this devaluation, right, of the Naira has made it easy for us to reprice our products. Because when customers say, why is your price increasing? You know that dollar used to be. So it's easy. It's an easier conversation now. And then what we used to sell at $5 in Ghana, that used to give us, say, 2,000 naira, now gives us 10,000 naira. So with the devaluation that has gone, we sell in Nigeria, and the amount that we sell in Ghana is 5x. So just like the speaker says, you don't need to collect dollars, but even the CD is more value for us. So in every situation, there's a positive. Bottom line is, learn how to sell. Sales will solve most of your problems. Sales will make the investors take you seriously.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Okay, then Mr. Oludari, your parting shot for our esteemed business owners.
I would say learn to think long term. And in thinking long term, you can't think long term with a hustle mindset. So you have to step back and think of where you envisage your business to be in 5 years at least. And then you walk back. What are the milestones and what are the funding need for each milestone? If you do it like that, you would likely experience what he just said. You would be able to identify different projects that may need a specific type of capital. And the business itself, you will also need another type of capital, probably equity. But then when you have a transaction, you may need a commercial paper or some form of funding that is tailored to that, so that your project is matched with, your financing is matched with your project and with your business growth phase. So essentially, if you are able to do that, you'd, and what another major problem I see with entrepreneurs or SMEs is that they wait till the last minute when they've lost, many have lost opportunities, 3 weeks to deadline, that's when they're chasing us. It's not possible. If you think long term, you'll be able to envisage these things over time. So that would be my part in short.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Think long term. That's very interesting. Then Mr. Willie.
All right, thank you. Two things. I just thought to add to what my colleagues have said. I want you to think about it this way. Excel that we all enjoy today, if I recall correctly, it wasn't Microsoft that came up with Excel. It was some young guys or Lotus who came up with, they came up with this thing, built it to a point where Microsoft paid to take it from them. There was this young guy who I had known him for years. And this was a little boy, then very, very cerebral, H.A. He built this system that solved the transportation problem, right, in the US, in New York, I think. I think it was Google or something that came and paid 1.2 billion or something, took it off. He moved on and moved to other things. I want us to be careful as a country. Let's take examples and see how they work for us. Here in this country, I remember when somebody started Red Star Express. I remember I was still in the university then, and the way the thing grew, it was amazing. But I read his profile back then. I think he was with DHL or something, or UPS at the time. I can't remember. But he built Red Star. Red Star was all over the place. Then FedEx, the US, sometime in 96, came and invested. And you know what he did? He put his own, there was a deal. His logo was a smaller one, and FedEx was the bigger one. You get what I'm trying to say is that he was looking at value, not as per holding on to the business for life. So I want us to have, as SMEs, you have a unique opportunity to invest your creativity as much as possible. Like my colleague said, build structure. But there are more people watching you. I like the way Mike Murdoch put it. There are more people watching you than you can imagine. And at the right time, when they want to have conversations, it's those things they have seen. And be willing to be part of a bigger thing than to solely own a small thing. Sometimes you need to make that trade-off. Then secondly, finally, the other part I want to mention is, I alluded to something about the progress being made in the country. Let me just give two examples. When Heritage Bank went down, back in the day, when a bank goes down, there's confusion all over the place. People are standing in front of their offices, there's tension, people are collapsing, those things. This time around, Heritage Bank came to NIBS and said, you know what? The guys that are here, can we use their BVN to get their other accounts in other banks so that the money we want to give them, we can transfer to those accounts? It was a conversation and it worked. And I'm sure you saw it in social media. People were saying, I didn't need to go. It was that discussion. Now, what I'm trying to say, these are public federal institutions, which we will call agencies, ministries, thinking like entrepreneurs, thinking business like businessmen. That is one example of what is going on behind the scenes. And it solved that Heritage Bank problem substantially. The other one was, back in the day, if you wanted to invest in the stock market, there was this formal process. If you recall, not sometime last year, there was this collaboration we had with NGX, where you can now trade, you can now buy stock using on your mobile app.
Yes.
It was that same, it was a conversation. So I'm just saying that let's just be hopeful. The country is making progress. I mean, these are just two examples I am privy to, but there might be others in other areas. It's all about building infrastructure that will benefit the collective. And as we see those opportunities, let's take advantage of them the best we can and just move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we give them a round of applause? And to all our entrepreneurs, another round of applause to you too. So what can we say? It's people that built America. It's people that built Europe, Asia. We can also build Nigeria to be a prosperous country. And yes, we can do it. So let's say we can do it. SME, okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, my able moderator. Thank you. We'd like to take a quick photo ops. I want to assume they've answered all the questions. Okay, yeah, asked a question. So let's allow my professional colleagues, my senior professional colleague, to ask our question.
Thank you. My name is Yeye Adenike Shobaju, past Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I actually wanted to ask, how do you advise SMEs to advertise their products? You talk about sales. What kind of marketing communications would you advise them to do? And basically, I want to, like he mentioned his professional colleagues, there are some of us service providers. When you're talking about SMEs, people think it's just buying and selling and all that. In all of this that you have said, how do you focus on service providers? Thank you. I don't know who to address.
Okay, okay.
I think the first part is on sales. I was fortunate to have a marketing and communication background. So my career has been Samsung, Stanbic IBTC, and all in marketing communication roles. So for the big companies, they have the big budgets to do radio, television, billboards, and the like. But as an SME, you don't have that luxury. The first thing is to understand the marketing system. Regardless of whether you're an SME or you're a multinational, you first of all need to get people interested. That's leads. Then those leads, when they come in, you need to convert them to become customers. And then the last stage is for you to fulfill the promise that brought them in, and then you get paid. So different organizations with different sizes, they execute this funnel. It's called the sales funnel. They execute it in different ways. For an SME, I'll speak for myself. We don't have the funds to go and get billboards or go on radio, on TV, but we can afford to do adverts on Facebook, right? So we have a system where we built that. We run our ads on Facebook and we generate interest. Now, the moment customers place orders from Facebook, we have a telemarketing team. So the Facebook ads is generally to get interested customers, get their details, phone numbers, email, and the likes. Then the sales team calls. They are very knowledgeable. They call and convince the customers to place orders, right? The moment this order is placed, it ceases to be a sales team problem. It becomes a fulfillment team's problem. The fulfillment team are the ones that ensure that the value that is ordered for is received by the customer, and then exchange of value, we get our monies, right? So you can generate leads from Facebook ads. Your business might be that you are writing a newspaper column and you get leads from there. It can be that you go on radio to talk and you get leads from there, but you must get interested leads into your funnel. And then you must So it's the intentionality of the system that makes it work, right? Because people just run ads and they don't have a system to take interested customers through that process. But if you can get it, if you can set it up in a way that it's running efficiently, you will be able to predict your income. And you know what? A business needs predictability, because when you have predictable income, you can plan, you can forecast. The problem is when you make ₦1 million today, tomorrow is 5 naira. You don't know when you make the next month. Then you can't plan. You are just running on what the Gen Zs will call vibes, right? You want to have a system that you know how much you put in and you can predict what comes out. And then you can continue to crank it up to become more efficient. I don't know if that answers the question.
Just to add to what you're saying, for service providers, I believe that there are people in that industry that I will call leaders, industry leaders in that any business that you're doing. You can seek their mentorship. They can guide you on how to also make sales in that industry. But one thing that is clear is that word of mouth is still the best form of marketing.
Yeah.
And for service providers, most sales come from referrals. If you do a good job for someone, definitely they will refer you to their friends and their networks. So you just need to be visible in that industry, let them know you, that this is what you stand for. So in real estate, there are some names you mentioned in real estate, and even Lagos State government will know that they can't question his approval.
And by the time you get to that stage, you are no longer SME. So what she's asking
There
for is for SMS.
Like, there's a quantity surveyors that you see their signature on
But
Lagos State.
you're not at the lower end of of the.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, another question? I must confess, we are 1 hour behind plan. I want us to shut it down in 5 minutes. I hope we can.
Thank you so much. My name is Lcci. I'm into shea butter processing. And to Mr. Usman, how do you navigate logistics, especially when you are exporting to another country? Like I have a customer in Zambia that wants my products. And by the time we calculated the cost of taking the product to him, it's even more than the product itself. So how do you navigate the logistics aspects? Thank you.
Okay. So for logistics, there's this thing I always say that it works differently for different products. There is high value, low weight products, right? So for instance, our own products have high value, but their volume and weight is low. Let me use an example. If you want to send 1 kg of gold and 1 kg of feather or mattress, you know that the 1 kg of gold will take very little space, but the value is far, far higher than the 1 kg of feather or mattress. So it's usually difficult to move products that have low value, high volume, and high weight. It's usually very difficult. You have to look for how to send it by sea, because your logistic cost to product cost will just be crazy. And that ratio can dissuade people from buying. If I'm buying something that is worth 5,000 naira and delivery is 5,000 naira, even if I have the 10 naira to spend and 10,000 naira to spend, I won't be interested in the sale. So by rule of thumb, you need to try to see that your product, the cost of shipping should be, I mean, this is what we have tested psychologically for customers, should be between 5 and 7.5% of the total product cost. So we typically bundle our offers to make it more valuable. We send to this, apart from Ghana and Cameroon. Ghana we send by road through GIG. Cameroon we send there's Eket. The boats move from Eket to, I don't know if it's Yaoundé or Douala, but we use that route. The other countries we send by air. Luckily, like I said, luckily for us, our products have high value, low weight. So it makes business sense. If it didn't make business sense, we wouldn't explore that option at all. So I think for you, what you'll be looking at is if you can get a distributor in that country that would buy your products in bulk and be the one reselling there. So the headache of transportation will be on them. I mean, off the top of my head, that's what I can. I mean, there might be other solutions, but that's off the top of my head, that's what I can think of right now.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. President, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I actually wanted to repeat what he said, but I won't do that. The trade fair is coming, I think, on the 7th?
Yes.
To 16th. Most of the African countries will be there. Your Zambia people will be there. Because that's yes, we have to combine everything together. Come to the trade fair. Look for a partner, right? That you can ship larger volumes to at a lower cost. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On that note, we'd like to appreciate the moderator as well as our very distinguished panelists. Please, Mr. Jegede, let's have their plaques as we make this presentation. Mr. President, sir, I'd like you to do us the honor of making this presentation to our leaders. Thank you. Mr. Oludare Fajimolu, is he here? Yes, thank you, sir. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. The representative of Mrs. Nwonko, our brother, Mr. William Uko, thank you.
It used to be.
Yes, Mr. President has told me something. We will. Madam Chair, please move closer to him. I know you are of deeper life, so you. Thank you so much. Mr. Usman Imana. Mr. Usman, thank you so much. Mr. President, the final one is for the moderator, Mr. Lcci. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Moderator, please. Hola. Yes. You were giving me another name. I want another name. For the vote of thanks, Mr. President, thank you so much. For the vote of thanks, I've been told to, you discover it's not on your list, but I've been told to call Mr. Lcci Michael for the vote of thanks. Mr. Lcci, please, let's put our hands together for him. We didn't want to clap for Mr. Lcci. I don't know what you offended. Right? Thank you. Okay, yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to believe our time has been well spent. Thanks for making our time to attend the SME annual seminar. I know when you see the man standing between you and lunch, most people are not happy with such persons. So let's try as much as well to give ourselves another round of applause, at least for staying out till this time. So I'm not going to take much of our time. It's just a vote of thanks to all that have contributed towards the successful hosting of this session. I want to, on behalf of LCCI Council members, staff, SME group, and NESCO members, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the following. First and foremost, I think to the president, represented by our Vice President, Engineer Leye Kukoluyi, for gracing us with his presence and staying till this time. Next thanks goes to our major sponsor, National Association of Securities Dealers, NASD, for partnering with us and supporting us in this symposium. I believe value has been delivered, and when we call on you again, you will definitely hearken onto our call. To our keynote speaker, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, founder and chief consultant of Biodun B. Adedipe Associates Limited, for the insights he provided earlier in the program. To our guest speaker, the MD, to our guest speaker, Mr. Apologies if I murdered your name, Egware Kide Longe is the MD CEO of NASD PLC for the message presented earlier to our members. To our guest speaker, who represented the Executive Director of NIPS, Mr. William Oko, we appreciate your own insight as well provided. Then, I believe we got value from the panelists, that graced us, which was moderated by Mr. Adeyemi Olaniyonu. So our panelists included Oludare Fajimolu, Mr. Osman Imana, Mr. William Uko as well, for the perspective they provided during the panel discussion. Our gratitude also to the FRSC team on the safety tips provided to our members earlier. To the media team, for successful coverage of the event. I believe we are streaming to the YouTube as well, and we have some online audience. We would like to appreciate them for staying the course till the end of the program. To the LCCI management and staff, for the support that they provided for hosting this successful event. And most importantly, to our participants. I guess without you, there wouldn't have been a symposium. And for those of us that have stayed from when we commenced till now, we really want to appreciate you. I believe you got value, and that's why you are still here to listen to us. We want to use this opportunity to wish us all a journey message back to our respective places. And when next we want to hold our own session, I believe you will be there to act into our call as well. Thank you once again, and another round of applause for ourselves.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lcci, for detailing all of our people in the vote of thanks. We'd like to call this a close. I know very soon our mouth and hands and everywhere will be very busy. I also need to join you on that journey of busy mouth and busy hands. Please, let's be upstanding as we take the national anthem for a close.
Bright and sound make but in brotherhood we stand. Nigeria's old and proud to serve, for sovereign fatherland.